Good evening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, I will say, first of all, that... let me turn on the game volume a little bit before I forget. But one thing that I did mention last time was that I was planning on doing some stuff in between last week and this week on the stream. Just mostly some the swoop racing quest, that sort of thing, so we didn't have to bog down tonight's stream with it. Unfortunately, I was about to do that, but it triggered a crucial, like, character important, because it's not exactly plot important, but character important cutscene, so couldn't do that. And there's no avoiding it at this point, so it looks like we're gonna have to do our stuff together here. Let's get Karth implants, so he can use implants. That'll work. Cool. And so now, rather than having that happen off stream, we're gonna do that now. It has to do with Bastila and some backstory and resolving some issues that she might have and that sort of thing. Anyway, we can do that this time. Also, I have still yet to run out of new, as yet unworn on stream Star Wars shirts. I have my Star Tours one this time, which is it was the Walt Disney World, Walt Disneyland ride that got canonized, that got turned into a piece of Star Wars canon. Whoa, that was interesting. Here we go. Excuse me, it's been a very long time, dear, but aren't you Bastila? Helena's little girl? Yes, it is you. I can see it in your eyes. My, how you've grown.
I'm Bastila, yes. I take it that you know my mother?
Yes. I worked for your father at an expedition years ago. Mother showed me hollows of you before you left. Such a pretty little girl you were.
Is there something I can do for you, miss? As you can see, we're in quite a hurry.
Don't be rude, Bastila. Oh, I don't mean to take up your time. I just wanted to ask if your mother's condition had improved since I saw her.
My mother's condition?
Oh, we're having some lag going on here. I don't know what she's saying, I'm sorry. There we go. Oh, you don't know? Oh dear, I assumed she'd found you. When I talked to her last, she was desperate to find you.
I've not seen my mother since I joined the Order. Do you know what's happened? Did she say anything about my father?
I'm sorry, dear, but your mother's very ill. So she told me. She didn't say anything about your father, however. I didn't see him.
I see. Where did you meet her? Do you remember?
She's here on Tatooine, dear, in the cantina. You should really go see her, considering her condition. I guess we should go see your mother, Bastila.
Part of me would rather not see her at all. But if she's really sick, well, we shall see.
Presumably she is, although who knows, really. From what we heard about her parents, her mother was, if I recall at least, basically a not a very good woman, let's say. She was always pushing Bastila's father to constantly be out and away doing crazy schemes and treasure hunting that he was really not particularly interested in or invested in, which kept him away from his family. That human woman, I'm outraged at her arrogance. You, all of your species, place yourselves on such annoying pedestals. I'm sorry, what are you talking about? You should be sorry for sharing a species with that creature. I swear, Helena must be your word for pit rancor. Helena? Bastila, isn't that your mother's name?
My mother was supposed to be here somewhere. Ask if they've seen her.
You can do that. Seen her? Human, we couldn't miss her. You couldn't miss her if you tried. She strolled into the cantina like she owned the place. Is she still there? Probably. I don't think anyone else could top her attitude, so she won't be leaving. I won't go back while she's still there, though. They're actually looking for her. You humans, you're all out of your minds. Which one's the cantina? Is it this? Oh, that's Zerka. Yeah. That, no. Hunting Lodge. Cantina's down that way. Okay, let's go. You went a long way, still mad, buddy. What's down here? Oh, nothing. Okay. There's a little jut out on the map that I wanted to clear and pick out. But it was nothing, as I kind of suspect. Alright, let's see how this is going. There she is.
Yes? I'm sorry, do I know you?
I'm here, Mother, but don't you recognize me?
What do you expect when I haven't so much as had a picture of you since you left? Do you know how long I've been trying to find you?
You knew as well as I communication would be impossible once I joined the Order. Now what is this about? Where is Father?
Then you haven't heard. I should have known.
Has something happened to him? Are you going to tell me or not?
Your father is dead, Bastila. That is part of the reason why I was looking for you.
Dead? What happened? What did you do to him?
Ooh.
It's a lovely reunion. Already she's flinging insults at me. Tell me, you're one of her friends. Do you treat your mother this way?
My mother's long dead, if you must know.
Is that so? Well, I'll be joining her soon enough, I suppose.
I was told you were sick. Are you actually dying, or is this merely melodrama for my benefit?
Such sweet things, you say. Perhaps I should tell you everything first before we start arguing again.
You could start by telling me what you got Father into that killed him.
I hadn't realized Jedi was so spiteful. You want me to tell you I brought your father here for an expedition, do you? You want to blame me for his death? You never accepted that your father loved going on his treasure hunts, leaving you alone with me. I was always to blame for everything. What else is new? So yes, fine. I brought your father here to look for great dragon pearls. He took an expedition into the Tatooine desert, and he died.
How can you be sure of that? Father is an experienced...
Do you think I would look for you if I wasn't sure? They were attacked by a great dragon, and one of the guides fled the battle. He saw your father killed.
I see. So what do you want from me? Credits?
Oh, don't be insulting. I want you to use those senses of yours. I want you to find him. I want you to bring back his holocron.
Why? So you can sell it?
Is it too much to ask that I have something to remember your father by? Of course it is, isn't it? You couldn't be bothered.
We're very busy on a mission from the Jedi Council. I doubt I'll have the time. Ask my companions if you doubt me.
Okay. So, two things. Few things. One, weird that he has a holocron. That is a Jedi recording device, pretty specifically. That's a side note. Although that is sometimes ambiguous, depending on who's writing what. It's sometimes ambiguous. There are some authors who take holocron to just be a data recording device. Basically, it's a USB drive. Big one. But there are some who, and I think this is more so what winds up getting established as canon moves on, and certainly in Disney canon, that it's exclusively powered by the Force. There's impression of left on it by the Force and all that. The other thing is that this is a sadly common tragic family dynamic. Where the absent father is seen as the adventurous type who's only ever away because he has to be, and mom who is there and taking care gets blamed even if she is still partially at fault, which seems to be in this case at least. But we see this kind of dynamic pretty often. Oddly, maybe I'm just thinking of one really prominent example, which makes me think that this is like a sci-fi thing. But I'm reminded of the final season, I think, of Stargate Sg-1, where Vala Maldoran has this beef with her father. And her father's basically a galaxy-trotting con man who's constantly cheating people. And he's off going on adventures, but when she was little, she thought she she loved him very much because he would always come back and bring her treasures that he found on his journey and all that kind of stuff. But then eventually, as she grew up, she realized that he was really just a con man and yada yada yada, the whole thing. What's the other backstory that I can think of that uses this trope is Jules' dad in Psych. Same kind of thing. And maybe why I'm making the sci-fi connections because he's played by William Shatner. So I don't know. Anyway, maybe it's not a sci-fi connection thing. Maybe it's just a strong female character backstory trope. But it is a pretty. I mean, I think it is it's pretty realistic and still quite tragic kind of family dynamic. Anyway, Don't you want to find your father's remains, Bastila?
What remains would there be? Great dragons are huge predators, easily able to devour a human, and the desert is a harsh environment. Finding my father's remains would be an even more impossible task than finding his holocron. An ignoble end to a fine man.
What about your mother's sickness?
It doesn't seem to have anything to do with what she's asking. Are you actually sick, Mother?
What difference does it make to you? None, I'm sure. Just find your father's holocron, and you won't have to worry about me again either way.
That's the kind of response I would expect. Very well. We'll look for the holocron if we have time. I can't promise any more than that.
I believe your father was headed north towards the Sand People Enclave. I would check along that route, dear. Do please hurry.
Okay, well, let's go and do that. I'm going to switch out Karth for Juhani. I like the all-Jedi crew. It's obscenely powerful. Although I think I like Jolie better in the party than Juhani, but whatever. Phoenix says, that's an interesting observation. Modern strong female character have absent father figures, but the absence was due to trying to do the right thing. Yeah, and also, in a lot of cases, she has a tendency, meaning the strong female character in general, has a tendency to blame him as well. Whether fully or partially or not at all his fault. What's up?
How may I be of assistance to you, Padawan?
That's a weird way of... yes, I am a Padawan, but usually that's a diminutive. Whatever. Anyway. Yeah, the strong female character typically has an absent father figure, but you're right. It is also interesting that it's typically not... It's always at least complicated, right? It's not just like he left, or it's not just like the typical single mom story, or whatever. Even look at Rey from the Disney sequel trilogy. Her father, which again this was not planned out well, but this is how it turned out. Her father, it turns out, was only missing because he left her somewhere safe and then went off and got killed trying to protect her. Again, it is almost always, I think, the case for the strong female character archetype. The heroically absent, or at least complicatedly absent father figure. I'm trying to think I can't think of too many counter examples. There are some counter examples where it's just not mentioned at all, where the family dynamics are not important to the backstory. But I don't know if to be fair, there aren't a lot of heroic characters with a solid, stable, familial relationship and dynamic. Although, you do have... Oh, man, this is an interesting point. Speaking of William Shatner, it's interesting the Kelvin timeline retcon that they did to James T. Kirk to sort of mold Kirk into this trope, because previously the original version of Kirk had his mother and father alive and well and very proud of him and very supportive, and they were mentioned several times in the series and all that. But in the J.J. Abrams Kelvin timeline, they had to have it so that they both, or not they both, but he heroically died to save them. So the absent father figure has a huge narrative and character driving significance. And I don't know what that changes, other than it changing with the times. I don't know. I think I like it less, oddly, as far as the origin story. I liked having James Kirk is the hero with a proper stable family. Yeah, the my name is Inigo Montoya line. Yeah, that's true. That is very, very true. Yeah, that usually, honestly though, the person seeking vengeance for a murdered father or for any kind of familial struggle like that, it's more often not the main character, not the hero. Usually it's the Lancer. It's the hero's foil, who's seeking revenge. And I'm even just, my mind also goes to something else I've done on stream. We have Garrus, right? Garrus in Mass Effect, same sort of thing. Where he's not the main character, he's the Lancer. He's the right hand man to Shepard, and he's the one with the revenge plot. Right? You also have the same thing with kind of in Red Dead Redemption, or at least two more than one, but two, where Arthur isn't really on a big old revenge plot, but he's helping everybody with their revenge plots. Basically all throughout the game. Phoenix says it might be because the people in Hollywood are children to single parents, don't want to depict a happy family. That is true. Happy families cause Catholic extremism, after all. Yeah, that's also not false. So if you're familiar with The Critical Drinker, he does fantastic sort of media analyses, and he has a series on why modern writing sucks. And he has a lot of reasons for it, a lot of which are really solid. But one of them, I think, sticks out here, and it is that modern movies are written by and for children, or at least, large children. 5 to 6 foot tall children with degrees. People who think like emotionally stunted people. And so they can't envision a heroic story that isn't somehow driven by angst. Like teenish angst. The Message. Yeah, okay. So you know the guy. I'm assuming you've seen the series, maybe? I hope. It's a really good series, and they're mostly relatively short as well, and they're all worth watching, but this one most particularly, because he makes the Star Trek comparison most prominently, and comparing how an almost identical situation occurs in The Next Generation versus in Discovery. And it's a case of insubordination, a case of difficulties in command structure. And how it's dealt with in the two series, one from 30 years ago and one now, and the difference is so incredibly stark, and it's entirely emotionally driven. Even from what I've seen of it, because I actually haven't been following the series, I almost feel like I should, because it's probably the least bad Star Trek thing running right now. Strange New Worlds, Spock is awkward more than he is logical. He's unemotional, not logical. Those are very different things. Spock traditionally was emotional. It's just that his emotions were under control, properly under control, by his reason and logic. Now he's unemotional like Data was unemotional, just in an awkward sort of way. And I think that's, again, that our benighted generation sees emotion as the core of humanity rather than reason. You see it in Halo, the Halo monstrosity of a show as well, where the part of the Spartan program is purging emotion with the little spine chip thing. And it is seen as a lack of humanity to be unemotional or to have your emotions inhibited, to set aside emotion for cold logic and careful consideration and combat, even soldiery, which is just it very much typifies the errors of modernism. There's a couple of C.S. Lewis predicted this quite well in the middle of the last century, when he pointed out that emotivism was really the how do I put it, the primary moral lens, the primary ethical lens for analyzing ourselves and our society. And so it also subjectivizes reason. It subjectivizes like concrete, theoretical reason, but also especially practical reason and ethics. This is most prominently in The Abolition of Man, but also in a later essay called The Poison of Subjectivism, both of which I have unlisted on my channel, and I'll put in the description and the Discord later. Unlisted for copytism reasons, don't worry. There are another couple of those C.S. Lewis doodles. Fantastic channel, by the way. But there was some copyright trouble with the audiobook owners, and I managed to get archive copies of a bunch of them, and I've re-uploaded a few. And I'm going to continue doing that. I just need to keep them unlisted because otherwise the copyright bots come after me. But anyway, Phoenix said I haven't seen the Halo show because I don't have Pirate Bay Plus. I've heard that it's bad. I have only been following it in clips and reviews and synopses and compilations and such. I've gone and watched parts and pieces just to see some context. And from absolutely everything I've seen, it's awful. It's just very bad. Some of the things that even some people are praising, even some of the really cynical people who are down on it are praising it for things like, man, I gotta say the alien design is great. The jackals look good. The elites look good. The brutes look amazing. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, but they even kind of screw that up because the Covenant order of battle is completely missing. Okay? Like one of the big things that was so novel about Halo Combat Evolved, the first game, is that when you go into battle with the Covenant, the different Covenant races had very specific places in the order of battle, and they were very distinct, very regimented, and they all had their own very particular place. And you could see them working together properly, and you could exploit that if you were clever enough. But this one, they're all just kind of wandering about and trying to close the distance while shooting repeatedly. And then there was the scene with the jackal with an energy sword, which is, I think, would probably be considered blasphemy by the Covenant, but also is ridiculous because they jackals are not melee combatants. Like, they're biologically, physiologically not melee combatants. Anyway, yeah, I'm not one to come to for tearing apart the Halo show. There's stuff in there that I can talk about in terms of in terms of metaphysics, in terms of ethics, especially the ethics of the show and the messaging and the message, so to speak, that is another example of what one would expect these days in current year, sadly. Anyway, for now though, speaking of ethical decisions involving weird characters, Jahani, I was wondering if you could talk.
What is it you would like to speak to me about?
You doing all right?
I thank you for your concern, but I am still a bit shaken.
Why, what's wrong?
I have been thinking about myself, about Quatra, and about my fall to the dark side. I keep thinking that it was my anger that drove me that far, that nearly damned me. I look inside myself now and I can still see it. I still feel it.
Perhaps you just need more time. Yeah, I think. I don't know if this is the direction the conversation is going to go to, but I'll bring it up now, and we'll see if it goes in this direction. But I think that part of, and especially just because of the sort of the influences of Star Wars from Joseph Campbell, and through Joseph Campbell to like Jung, the whole integrating the shadow thing, is an important aspect of acknowledging the dark within oneself and making a conscious decision to keep it under control and to instead choose the light. You're never going to be completely free of temptation, to put it in more Christian terms. So I would like to say something like that, but it's not quite an option. Phoenix says it's as though they copied the aesthetic but didn't add any soul. It's like getting Warhammer 40k Tau Earthcast to infantry combat. It's as though these creators don't understand caste systems. They don't understand them, and they explicitly reject them. They don't understand why the Covenant hates humanity, because they forgot that part. First of all, they forgot to have the Covenant hate humanity, because the Covenant is not glassing planets. Well, not on screen at least. Not really a threat. Then they have Maki, the human Covenant, which is just even more absurd. Then they have the what are they, prophets, like basically honoring her, even though yes, to be fair, they're not actually. Yeah, there's a little bit at the end, it's like, oh, we've been using you the whole time. But like, that's silly. The reason they did that is so they could have the little chosen one thing with Master Chief, because that's a 343 thing, I guess. The new thing. I haven't played Halo past 3. I've only ever played 1, 2, 3 and part of ODST. So, but yeah, they forgot to play the bloody game before making a show about it. Yeah, no, they didn't forget. They intentionally didn't. You remember that? There's a news article about this. They intentionally did not play the game before they made a movie about it. Funny enough, I also speaking more of Star Wars, with Kenobi coming out in a few days, us being on Tatooine, I'm apprehensive for a lot of reasons. One from the leaks and such, which I won't share, but also because it's current year. But then also the guy who's playing the High Inquisitor. First Inquisitor? What's his name? The Inquisitor. The Pawan Inquisitor. Said he intentionally didn't watch any of Star Wars Rebels to prepare for the role. None. He specifically avoided seeing the previous portrayal of the character that he is playing. Why do they always do this? Like, this is a trend now. It's like if Martin Freeman had never read The Hobbit when he decided that he was going to play Bilbo Baggins. Because he does a pretty good job playing Bilbo Baggins. For all the faults of that trilogy, he was a good Bilbo. Anyway, I don't know. It's just another indication that the adaptations are moving away from the original source material very intentionally, very deliberately, and even when it's supposed to be in the same continuity, like with Obi-Wan. Or, sorry, Kenobi, or the new one, the new Star Wars. With Halo, it makes more sense, because I guess they're doing the alternate timeline thing, but, like, still, the storytelling in the game is actually good. They would really benefit from actually paying a little bit of attention to it. And the world building. The world building is great. It's like Amazon making a show about Lord of the Rings without reading the original books. Evil cannot create. Evil can only make what is good ugly, and evil wants everything to be ugly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. They're legally not allowed to read the original books. They can't read the Silmarillion, and they're making a show about the Third Age. Oh my god. At least everyone already acknowledges that it's going to be bad. Everyone who's not being paid to say otherwise is acknowledging that it's going to be terrible. There's at least that. Everything else, like all the other stuff, there have been defenders of it. There's even a few defenders of the Halo show. Hey, WizKid, welcome back. There's even a very few defenders of the Halo show. We bashing the Tolkien Society? Well, not specifically, but sure, I love bashing the Tolkien Society. At least lately. They used to love the Tolkien Society. To read their newsletters and things. Recently, though, they've gone mad.
More time would do me good. Time to distance myself from that anger. I think that is why the Council agreed to send me with you. They think, perhaps, that in your company, I will be able to free myself from it.
If I see you beginning to slip back, I'll intervene.
I thank you for your concern and your acceptance. I will strive to prove that I am worthy of your company and trust.
Hey, jeez. Yeah, also the meat puppeted icons. Yes, it's the whole progressive skin suit thing, as usual. Yeah, WizKid says, I'm a little bit offended, but I'm not. I partially have to agree. WizKid says, intellectuals ruin everything they come into contact with. Listen, I am an intellectual, okay? Not intellectuals in general. It's specific schools of thought.
It's you again. I'll just let you pass. The boys in the office. Good hunting.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so WizKid says, now that we're playing KOTOR, we're going to have to talk about Noah's KOTOR video again. I think I only saw his video on the second one. I'll have to go back and rewatch it. Any specific points that you want to bring up, though, and see if I have thoughts on it, feel free. I might have seen the first one. I think I might have only seen his video on KOTOR 2. You say this also being a very intellectual person. Yeah, I mean, like, look, I'm an intellectual, I'm a scholarly academic in a traditional institution of scholarship and yada yada yada. And yet I still freely acknowledge the grievous problems with academia. I tend to still take the route. I still tend to hold out hope in redeeming academia rather than letting it burn. But I can respect people who would like to see it burn and have no hope in the restoration of academia, let's say. Hey there, Dewback. Sand people. I just tend to think that academia is, even if it's not salvageable, it's worth saving because it is a fundamentally Christian, and I would further say Catholic, institution dating back 1,000 years at least. Phoenix says they're intellectuals TM who are absolute H. Is that an Australian thing? And then there's intellectuals cross who are Chads. That's true. Yeah, that's true. I try to beat the latter as best I can. WizKid says, yeah, well, I just realized this a few days ago, but he intentionally placed the non-canon gender of Revan in exile. Probably to, I don't know, make a statement or something. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's... Okay, no, I have seen this. It was a long time ago, but I have seen this. Yeah, I remember that. I will say one thing, though, is that if it weren't canonically... If it weren't canon, and if the Revan and Bastila relationship weren't so important to the story, I probably would too. And the reason for that is that KOTOR 1 is a very traditional BioWare-style feminine heroine's journey. The same kind of thing as Mass Effect, where Revan is the pivotal center around which it all turns. Because canon but his goal is not to go and accomplish the thing. His goal is to go out and find things that will lead him to discovering and then therefore finding the thing. He's beginning his quest before he knows the end point. That's not the hero's journey, traditionally speaking. The same more or less goes for KOTOR 2, but I can also see that as being that leans a little bit more towards the hero's journey, or at least a sort of subversion of the hero's journey, rather than this different sort of feminized version of it. And again, I see no problem with the story structure. I really like it. I love it, actually. It's the one. It's in Mass Effect. It's in at least Dragon Age Origins and Inquisition. Not so much 2. Which is why, again, I like female characters here. Yes, WizKid, you called it, because yeah, it is, obviously. It says, well, I think academia that's good is always the sort of thing that's always on the run, because ultimately it will be pushing against society's lesser urges. True, and I think that it's easily co-opted. Academia is easily co-opted because academics, as a rule, are cowardly. We are, as a rule, not exactly the boldest of people. Courage is not our characteristic of virtue. If anything, we're wisdom, obviously. Then some of us are okay at justice. Some of us are okay at temperance. Most of us aren't. And almost none of us academics are actually very courageous. So we're easily pushed around, and we're easily pushed into supporting whatever it is that is in vogue. Whether that is, whether that's your favorite heretical sect in the Renaissance era, whether that is the Nazis in World War II, which a lot of academics were vehemently supporting, or whether that's the COVID tyranny over the last couple of years. Most academics are all for it, even some of the good ones. What are you going to do? Get us to be somehow more courageous? That's hard. It's really difficult. I have argued, though, that something like virtual practice, things like gaming, can help with that. Not necessarily, but it can help. Let's see, is this it? No? Okay. Let me write this down so I remember to put it in the description. Okay. Ooh. We got a purple crystal. Cool. WizKid says, yeah, progressive academics always put their intellect before their morality, and it always bites them in the ass eventually. I don't know if I would say that. There it is. That's it. I don't know if I would quite say that, because again, in line with what C.S. Lewis says in The Abolition of Man, it's not like they are particularly intellectual, because you can be that sort of person without being particularly intellectually astute. It's just the atrophy, what he calls the atrophy of the chest beneath, that makes their heads appear all that much larger. Oh, bad internet. Yeah. Storms again, I'm assuming? Seems like we're about to get some more too, so hopefully not while we're streaming. We'll see. Phoenix says maybe make it that all intellectuals need sports. That's Plato's way. It's easy to be brave when you're brick shithouse trained in wrestling. That's true. When your nickname is Broad, which is what Plato means. Broad meaning like beefy. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I love Plato's philosophy of education. I think it's pretty spot on. That you should begin with hearing stories, like fables, basically, myths, legends, fables, properly constructed, of course, for proper moral and theoretical education, and aesthetic education, of course, as well. Let's not forget that. Then, wait a minute, hold on. I'm just realizing something. Oh. I'm realizing that my framing is off here. There's no way of fixing that at the moment. Yeah, I'll have to fix it later. Very bottom of the screen is cut off a little bit, but that's what I get for playing a square screen game. Anyway. So yeah, beginning with hearing stories for moral education and also for aesthetic education. Then moving on to gymnastics, so sports basically, and then eventually, finally to music and poetry. So harmony. I mean, it's in theory why Gen Ed exists, but not really though. Another essay by C.S. Lewis, listen, C.S. Lewis is a phenomenal theorist about education. All right, he's better than anybody writing today by far. But he pointed out as well, and this is in our English syllabus, which I couldn't find an audiobook for it, so I made one. It's on the channel. He points out that there are several steps to this. There is training, there's education, and there is learning. Training is learning how to do something in particular. It's technical. Techne. Learning a skill. Learning to accomplish something in particular. Education is... and training is, of course, unfortunately, what most universities are doing today. Because we're obsessed with universities basically just being or too expensive tech schools. Well, what is going on, Juhani? But then education is about becoming a good person, is becoming a properly well-rounded person. Learning is where one specializes. That's what we do today as grad school. And really not until then. In that case, you're no longer your education is no longer curated for you. You're driven by your own curiosities. Wishing to explore things in their natural way and delve into the deeps of the way things actually are. Gen Ed is for education. It's that middle stage, that making you into a proper, well-rounded person. Wiskin says, everyone's supposed to have a general understanding of how the world works, so when they go out in a profession, they know how to deal with the other sorts of people. Yeah, so the other thing is liberal education. Which liberal education, the whole idea behind that, liberal arts, is those arts which are required for a free person to live freely. Which I agree. I think that's absolutely right. I think that's the goal that should be the goal of education. Unfortunately, that's not the goal of education today. Most university education is job training. Or credentialing, at least. Riveman says, speaking of Lewis, hello, by the way. I've definitely got to look more into C.S. Lewis on his take of pets in heaven. He's a little wishy-washy on it. He says different things in a few different places. So I don't think he has a solid view on the matter. Aside from the eternal perfection of creation upon the second coming, he is really solid about that. He's very insistent that includes animals, though he's a little bit wishy-washy, like I said, about whether it's the same animals that are resurrected or if it is that the new heaven and new earth will have animals. Again, he's not super specific, if I recall. Yeah. I take the Thomistic view, really, that animals are mortal, fundamentally, or irrational animals are fundamentally mortal. That they die upon death, and they're annihilated upon death. They do not exist. Their souls are purely material, etc., because they have purely material operations, unlike ours, which are abstract and universal. And so, in something like that, our souls are naturally immortal. Brute animals are naturally mortal. God can, of course, restore life to a dead animal by reintegrating its mortal soul. So it's possible at the resurrection. I don't think there's anything contradictory about, my cat Binks coming back upon the resurrection. There's nothing inconceivable about that sort of thing. It's not logically impossible. It's just right now he's dead, right? That kind of thing. He's not there. He's not anywhere right now. I mean, unlike your great-great-grandmother, who is somewhere right now, hopefully in heaven. Phoenix says, I get what you mean by the difference between training and education. In nursing school, we're taught moral philosophy, law, Aboriginal history, and human development. It wasn't just about the job, and it shouldn't be. I mean, I wish we separated it more. That's all. That's all I mean. Like, because I teach philosophy, and there aren't exactly a lot of philosophy factories still operational. My teaching is definitively not for career placement, unless I'm training more philosophy professors, which is unwise for me from a job security standpoint. Unless I'm running a pyramid scheme, basically. I am not trying to get people to take my class because it will help them in any way professionally. Because, no, it won't. It'll only help them professionally insofar as being a better person will help them professionally. Being able to think clearly about things will help them professionally. That's true, but it's trivial. I teach what I teach because I think it'll help people in general. That it's good for you to be able to know. Now, whether that's the kind of thing that you should take out, 5 or 6 figure loans for, probably not. I don't advise you do that, by the way. Once you have the money to spend on it, I absolutely advise that you spend it on education. It's a great thing to spend your money on. But if you don't have the money to spend on it. If you don't take out that 5 to 6 figure student loan, unless you know specifically what you're going to do with it, and if in that case it's not education, it's training that you're after. And the credentialing thing too, I'll also say, the credentialing thing is, I wish I could more easily sift my students into these two camps of people who are here because they want the grade and they want their degree, and the students who want to know stuff. Because the students who are here because they want to know stuff, the grade shouldn't matter, because it doesn't really matter to them. And I can eventually find out these students who are like, yeah, no, the grade doesn't matter, whatever. It's a gen ed class, whatever, who cares? I'm here to learn stuff. And then the other people who are like, no, it's a gen ed class, it's going to hit my GPA. Need that GPA or whatever. There's a big difference between those two, and there's a huge difference in their attitude. Both of them can work very hard, or not. They work very differently. Very differently. And I wish I could sift them through more easily at the beginning. But I don't know how it would necessarily affect how I teach. But it's something that I've been more putting thought into. Wizkid says the animals are like the pagan; they're gonna die. Pagans are immortal like the rest of us. Okay, just because they got some things wrong and may not die in the grace of God and wind up eternally separated from his glory and suffering eternally. That doesn't mean they're not eternal. Rifleman says, see, I was kind of the opinion that the soul of an animal would almost imprint itself on the immortal soul of its owner, but if the animal souls are annihilated like Thomas determined, they wouldn't have near-death experiences. I don't think they would. Yeah, I would say that that's they might imprint themselves on the immortal souls of their owners in the sense that they live on in our memory, but that's very shallow. That's not existing. That's they become they become part of a structure which includes us as primary. Which is basically just to say they exist in relation to us. And when they cease to exist, there is still that relationship, but it's only insofar as we exist. The thing that's related does not anymore. This is why God does not change, even though we do, and we are related to God. God's relationship to us changes when we do. That doesn't mean God is changing. right? Again, this is by analogy, but it's a similar kind of structure. Hashtag pagan lives matter, but still cringe, though. Absolutely. Erica, you can tell them that you're a certain pagan we were talking about not too long ago. Anyway, if you'd like. Yeah, I'm not great at advertising. Hey, take my class, but only if you can afford to waste money on it. Seriously though, like that's really my pitch. Really, that is my pitch. Only take my class if you can afford to waste money on it, but I can't think of anything better to waste money on. There you go. There it is. Study philosophy. Rifleman said on liberal education, I've run into a lot of people professionally asking me to do what to do in a specific situation, and it's like they want training for a specific instead of understanding overall. Yeah. It's like the difference between learning your times tables and learning how to do multiplication. Learning your times tables will get you the answer much more quickly, much more easily. You can memorize it, and you can have it all set. But then you only know 1 through 12. Learn how to multiply. Phoenix says, nowadays education is really accessible and even free at times. Just subscribe to me on YouTube. Yeah. I mean, yes, but this interaction is also rare. And this interaction is also limited. I am, by the way, thinking of doing some more interactive type stuff, maybe book club type things, maybe like live stream chat analyses of things. I really would like to look at some of those Tolkien Society presentations, the nightmarish ones from a couple years ago, and we can all just sort of go on Discord and live stream it and chat about them and tear them apart, something like that. That could be a lot of fun. That could be more interactive, but that is the kind of thing that you rarely get. The university, I think, still does quite well, except for the last couple of years when they completely abandoned the one thing that they're good at. Anyway, Biscuit says, it definitely don't care what my GPA is. Like the first time I've ever been actually good at school, but even if I weren't, so long as I'm learning and doing moderately well, I don't mind. And that's the thing. You shouldn't care about what your GPA is, at least for your terminal degree. If it's before your terminal degree, you're going to use your GPA to get to your terminal degree. So it kind of matters, practically speaking. But at that point, yeah. If you can get your BA, if that's where you're ending, or your MA, if that's where you're ending, or your PhD, if that's where you're ending, with C's, which doesn't happen in PhD programs, by the way. They either give you A's, B's, or F's. But whatever. The middle ground drops out there. But if you can get there with whatever you get, it doesn't matter at that point. Anyway, Wizkid says, I don't know, Vince. I really think the pagans will only suffer for a short time and get annihilated and return to the Well of Souls. That's just pagan. You're just being cringe now. What the heck's a Well of Souls? God, you're triggering ancient memories in me with this. Erica, you know what I'm talking about vaguely, don't you? Well of Souls. I'm either going to talk about this or I'm not. I haven't decided yet. Let's talk to Johanna first.
How may I be of assistance to you, Padawan?
I was wondering if we could talk. Didn't we just do this?
What is it you would like to speak to me about?
Rifleman says that the near-death experiences I'm referring to would be human near-death experiences of animals. And more critically, animals they wouldn't have known are dead, like their pets die when they're in a coma. Okay. The animals in heaven, I don't know. There might be something to do with the relationship between the two. And if nothing else, the absence is a kind of relationship. With Rifleman continues, but this requires me saying that animal souls are also rational souls, but they don't seem to have free will, at least as we do. No. Animals have problems with rational abstraction as well. You ever move to a new place and your dog can't figure out doors? Our cats couldn't figure out doors. We had to show them the cat flap all over again, that kind of thing. Because they can't abstract the concept of door or portal, kind of thing. At least not in the way that we do. So again, maybe there is something more to this sort of relational quality. between ourselves and our animals. I'm not sure. Phoenix says, a Professor McCoy book club obliterating the Tolkien Society would be the greatest use of Catholic autism since St. Nicholas super punched areas. Oh, geez. Yes. I'm on board. Time and a place, man. I'm 100% on board. I really want to do it. I really wanted to analyze and tear these monstrosities apart since they happened. I've only actually watched the first one of them. Catholic autism is a term I didn't know I needed. How did you not know that term existed? You definitely need that term, Wizkid. No offense, of course. Autism is a good thing in most cases. At least for philosophy. Anyway, though, yeah, that one. There's also some books that I just want to read and discuss. Just sort of as in the same way that I discuss and teach the sort of lessons that I have in my standalone videos. There's books that I want to do that about. Abolition of Man, obviously. I'd love to do. I've taught a course on Plato's Republic, and I'd like to do that as sort of a reading group. And then also one I've been talking about for ages that I keep waving at the camera every once in a while. It's not right here. Myth of Religious Violence by William Kavanaugh. William? Yeah, it's Kavanaugh either way. Fantastic. Amazing book. Fundamentally changed the way that I understand world religions, like the religious studies, and also, I knew a little bit more about history, so this didn't come as too much of a shock, but at least certainly changed the way I understood the sort of wars of religion, the Renaissance to the early modern period. Also, Locke was a dick. Learn that too. That's not fair. Locke was vehemently and strongly opposed to the toleration of Catholicism in particular. Let me put it that way. Wizkid says, the primordial nothingness that everything arose from after God breathed life into creation. Yeah, nothing. Your nothing doth noth too much. This is a problem Nietzsche has. So yeah, it's why animals can't talk to us either. You can use conditioning to teach them things, but they cannot abstract like we do even remotely. Yeah, very true. How did you come to be a Jedi, Johan?
How I came to be a Jedi? I am sure you would not find it very interesting. Are you sure you would like to hear?
Sure, go on.
Well, it goes back a number of years. Back on my homeworld, we did not see Jedi very often, especially where I lived.
What's the Cathar homeworld like?
It was not the homeworld of the Cathar that I lived on. My parents had long fled from that place, and perhaps that is a story for another time. Rather, it was a human hive world that I was raised on.
It's
the
a hive
hind
world.
end of space. A pit of a world, to be sure, where Jedi rarely tread. But we had heard of them. Well, everyone had, so that is not to be unexpected. Champions of truth, defenders of justice, heroes of the Republic. It was very easy for a child to be enthralled by their image, their mystique. Maybe I was one of those children.
And how did you gain entrance to the Order?
When I saw a Jedi for the first time, they lived up to everything my imagination had created them to be. I was awed, and maybe a little enamored.
Enamored?
They were quite striking, especially the tales of their leader. From that moment on, I knew that I would have to try to become a Jedi, to lift myself out of the rut I had been living in for years, and to make a real difference, as the Jedi wore. The foolish delusions of a child, but this child made it happen. As soon as I was able, I left my world and went in search of them. I found them and was accepted. I had been living my dream on Tatooine for several years before you came, although Perhaps I was not entirely ready for it, or not completely suited to the task. Otherwise, I would not have fallen. But thanks to you, I have been redeemed. Perhaps I may yet live to see that dream of mine come true. Come, there is much we should do. Let us not waste time talking. Action is what is needed.
Nice. The ambition aspect of her character is, first of all, odd for a Jedi, but makes sense that she fell, in a sense. That kind of ambition is very dangerous for someone who has incredible power, but must set it aside for greater ends of justice, that sort of thing. Phoenix says, my re-understanding of the Crusades was nowhere near as intellectual. I just found Christianity Ball, speaking of Catholic autism, and fell down the rabbit hole of Crusade apologetics. Is it Brant Petrie? I think. Somebody who's vaguely associated with Catholic Answers wrote a great historical book, The Glory of the Crusades, that goes through and basically explains why the Crusades were, by just war theory, mostly justified. Mostly. There are a couple of outliers. 4 and 9, maybe, was it? The one that sacked Constantinople and the Children's Crusade, which may not have actually even happened. Not really justified, but the rest of them, yeah, pretty much. Whiskey says, I don't know, lots of culture, including Judaism. Jainism? How did I get Jainism out of that? Judaism have depictions of the underworld that are broken up into distinct regions aside from simply torture and damnation. So I think there's something to all my weird pagan leanings. Before Christ, maybe. Of course, Judaism would. Yeah, before Christ, sure. But that's certainly not the case now. It may not have ever been the case. It might have been the case that harrowing of hell was the harrowing of hell per se, as we understand it. Or it could have been the harrowing of the underworld, bringing those who were below back up, righting the world, that sort of thing. But certainly, there is union with God and separation from God. Those are really the only options. The only sort of... Okay, so there's two other options you could have, which is on the way towards union with God, which we already account for in purgatory, or annihilation, non-being. Absolute non-being. Not world soul, not the well of souls, non-being. And if it's non-being, that's worse than hell. Because again, I've talked about this a lot. This is a very core, crucial philosophical insight that is fundamental to the Christian worldview, is that the ultimate evil there is, the worst thing, is nothing. You go from good to bad to worse to worse to worse. Eventually it bottoms out in nothing at all. Evil is the lack of being. The lack of being is evil. And so, if you exist eternally separated from God in eternal conscious torment, with a guy in red spandex poking you with a pitchfork, whatever cartoonish depiction of hell that you want, the absolute worst state of being, the worst state of being that is possible, is still better than not existing, because at least you exist, and you must exist even to be tortured. And this is where I think we have to part ways with a lot of modernists who say that annihilation is preferable to a lot of things. It's a suicidal philosophy, a suicidal metaphysic, where there are things worse than death. Which, yes, there are things worse than death, damnation, but what a lot of modern people mean by when they say something like there are things worse than death, they mean things like torture, which, no. Not worse than annihilation, because by death, these are materialists, so they mean annihilation, which is the worst thing, simply by nature. So no, none of that. None of that. Now, we can say heaven is a palace with many rooms. There's a great deal more to heaven than simply being. We are human, after all. And, well, maybe that's not true. There probably isn't a lot more to heaven than mere being. There is a lot more to the new heaven and the new earth. Let's say, the eschaton, than merely being. That's a different point, though. There's a lot more to perfection in the presence of God than merely standing before the divine glory, I guess. Because we exist still, and even then, we exist still as members of the church, as part of the body of Christ, as community, and all that. So the diversity is on the upside, not on the downside. This is another insight that I think that Lewis got spot on right. Pointed out that how gloriously different are all the saints, and how boringly the same are all the damned. Sheol does not equal Gehenna. Sheol was what we understand as limbo. In some of the Hebrew traditions, they would talk about a period of suffering that only lasted so long, and then they just wait. Well, yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then again, that may have been true before Christ. Because they were waiting, indeed, they were waiting for the Messiah. And now they're not waiting anymore. So there's no waiting place.
Back already? Have you even looked for the holocron yet?
I have the holocron, Mother.
I've been standing here talking for like 20 minutes. Come on.
And why not?
It's been a while.
Would you deny me even that?
I've never denied you anything, Mother. You may think I don't remember what it was like before I left for the Order, but I do. You were the one who pushed Father to go on one treasure hunt after the other. You loved living in wealth. You think I don't remember the fights? You were eager to send me to the Jedi even though I didn't want to go. You took Father away from me. And now this holocron is all I have of him.
Fool girl. You have a strange way of remembering things. That wasn't...
No, I don't wish to argue with you anymore, Mother. It's time we parted ways now, for both our benefit.
Maybe you should listen to what she has to say.
You don't know her. My mother is notoriously deceptive when she wants something. Why should she have the holocron?
Is it too difficult to believe that I am a dying woman who simply wishes to see her husband one last time?
I find it difficult to believe anything you say, Mother.
Maybe one of you should be the first to give the other a break.
You're right. It shames me, but I find it difficult to let go of the past. I'm sorry, Mother.
I was hard on you, dear. I wasn't a very good mother to you. I know that. Your father loved you so. He wanted you to be just like him. He wanted to take you on his hunts, but I said they were too dangerous.
Treasure hunting is a dangerous occupation. No kidding.
I always tried to keep him from the dangerous ones, but he would have none of it. It was a reckless life we led. Always moving. I didn't want that for you.
So that's why you gave me to the Order?
What do your father and I have to show for all those years of hunting? Nothing. That was no life for anyone, especially not someone as gifted as you, your father. He spent all his last years trying to pay for my treatments. That's why he went for the pearls. I begged him not to, but...
Your treatments?
I'm dying, Bastila. I did not lie about that. It's been a long time in the coming, and there's really nothing that can be done anymore. I told your father to let me go, but you know how he was. Stubborn, like you.
I'm so sorry, Mother. I don't know what to say.
Keep the holocron, Bastila. It would do me good to know you have it. This talking to you, this is what I really needed before I
know. Thank you. I'm glad we talked too.
Well now, you said you had important business, and you were never one to mince words. You there. You take care of my daughter, you hear me?
Sounds like a blessing. Anyway, I'll do my best.
That's good. I'll feel a lot better knowing there's someone to watch her.
Where are you going to go?
It doesn't matter, dear. Don't you worry about me.
Here, take these 500 credits. It's all I have. Go to Coruscant and find a doctor. I'll meet you there after what I have to do.
But I already told you there's nothing that can...
Please take it. I want to see you again, when we can talk.
All right, I will. You do what you have to, Bastila. You go make your father and I proud.
I'll try. Farewell, Mother.
Aw. Nice. WizKid suggests I do Metal Gear Solid in part because that is Naomi Hunter from Metal Gear. That's also Jennifer Hale, the voice actress. So FemShep and the trooper from Star Wars: The Old Republic, and what? A bunch of stuff. She's a very, very, very prolific voice actress, especially for games. Probably most notably Shepard. But yeah, this is what I meant. That situations like this, it's always more complicated than it appears, especially to kids trapped in it. This kid said earlier, I suppose I just find it interesting that you see all these cycles of death and rebirth in all the old religions where, while Christianity ultimately transcends it, I still think there's a kind of beauty in the notion that someone joins themselves to the cosmic comings and goings, even though ultimately it's just an endless loop. I mean, the freaking Gizkas. There's kind of something to that. However, I think that it's important to draw the distinction between eternal life and endless life. Right? There's a weird thing to distinguish between, because again, I don't think we ordinarily make such a distinction. But we, as Christians especially, should make such a distinction, because eternal life is qualitative, not merely quantitative. And this is the warning of trying to achieve eternal life through mundane or materialistic means, is that maybe you can do it. Maybe you can live for trillions of years. But it's a mere sequential existence of the kind of finite particular way that we do. Even if it is cyclical and even if it is cosmic, it's still finite and it's still not eternal. And this is the trouble with sort of the transhumanist movement of the whole, yes, we can upload our consciousnesses to the machine, to the cloud, and we will live forever. No, you won't. The heat death of the universe will still wipe you out someday, in however many trillions of years that is. So it's not eternal. It's still finite. You will reach an end point. The other problem is that it's the curse of what's called immortality, meaning endless sequential existence, of you will have no drive or ambition because there is always a tomorrow. A large part of why we do things is because we have a finite amount of time to do it. And then further, the world is constantly changing. And if we exist eternally, we either are leaves on the wind, change with it, and lose ourselves, our identity. Or we're solid and stable, and we get left behind by the world. Think about old people, like in the real world today, even in a few decades worth, human lifespan. It's easy to get left behind by the world moving on. Now think if you lived for thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions or trillions of years. All the more so. Yeah, Eric, a great example. Justice League Unlimited episode where Superman goes to the future where Earth is wiped out and Vandal Savage is just there chilling. Yeah, Vandal Savage being the sort of immortal, the token immortal of DC Comics, I think represents a good illustration of the kind of thing that you have as a problem. Erica says he basically has no goals anymore because there's nothing left, and he's just existing, and he thinks it's horrible and helps Superman go back. Yeah, it would be. Transhumanist, we will live forever. Server crash, dies. Yes, that's the other issue. You're making yourself all the more dependent upon factors outside oneself, outside one's control. But that aside, even you can point to like Doctor Who explores this quite well. For all the crap it got, Peter Capaldi's run explores a lot of these issues where he has the whole Arya Stark's character. I don't even remember the actress's name. I definitely don't remember the character name, but the one who he makes immortal in order to save her from something bad happening. He basically makes her immortal, and he has another thing where he gives it to her and says, you can use this to make somebody else immortal, but it'll only work on one person. And he says, because he points out that, look, living forever, right, being immortality isn't living forever. It's watching everyone else around you die forever. That's a solid, horrifying point. Especially if you're the only immortal. Yes, WizKid says the perfect description. The problem with immortality is that it is an infinitely mortal life. All the shitty things about mortal life are still there and needs to be contended with. And that's already a tall order in normal life. Yeah, can you imagine having to deal with the crap that we deal with for 90 years, if we're lucky? The dealing with that for 900 billion? Come on. I honestly think that most people would stop at some point, would end it. This is why in Tolkien, to go back to Tolkien, this is why the elves refer to mortality as the gift of men. Because elves are, properly speaking, immortal. They exist tied to Arda, the world, Middle-earth, forever, until its end. They cannot and do not escape it. Even through death, they are either in the halls of Mandos in Valinor, or they're reborn. They do not escape it, and they see death as a gift, a release. Something good and beautiful. That men don't understand that. Or not anymore. They did when the Numenorians understood this. Originally. The first few generations of Numenorians understood this. When they died voluntarily. Oh, Jack Harkness is another good example from Doctor Who. Yeah, WizKid. Why immortality sucks. He tries to drown it out with hedonism, admittedly a lot of heroism, but it still drags him down a lot psychologically. Yeah, even in Torchwood you see some of this. In there, he's a relatively young immortal. I think ultimately, so this is going back a ways, I kind of skipped over a comment, I think. So apologies. WizKid says, I think ultimately for me, the reason I prefer Catholicism, despite my occult pagan leanings, is I would rather be with God as myself than going around in circles and as not ultimately who I am right now. Passing out of being, right? I mean, there's a sense in which you are, even a pure materialist can say that, yes, you are immortal. When you die, you rejoin the cosmos from which you were derived, by which they just mean the atoms that make up your body disperse back into stardust, right? That whole thing. Which sounds all pretty and poetic when Carl Sagan says it, but realistically, that's saying the same thing that Hinduism is saying, or that the Jedi are saying. Yes, you disperse back into the cosmic force. Your identity fades back into the force from whence you came. That just means you die and cease to exist. That's all that means. Except for Force Ghosts, that being the exception.
Statement. HK-47 is ready to serve, Master.
Oh, yes. Fighter simulation, what? Do you know anything about these Gizka, HK?
Statement. I have little knowledge of that to impart, Master.
Okay, I guess you don't know about Gizka. You're not an extermination droid. I thought you were.
Statement. HK-47 is ready to serve, Master.
I love this guy. We have a little stowaway problem. Can you help?
Statement. I cannot be of assistance on that, Master.
Who can?
Statement. HK.
I'd like to know more about your functionality.
Statement. I know some elements of my functionality, Master, but not all.
I think I put too much cream in my coffee. I don't usually. I put whipped cream, but I think it was too much and it sunk in, and now it's all, like, pale looking. I thought you said removing your restraining bolt would restore your memory.
Qualification. I suspected that it might, Master, but without memory, I had no way of knowing whether or not I knew that was true.
So you lied to me.
Qualification. Not so much, Master. I spoke out of ignorance. I assumed the Athorian was responsible for my memory loss. That does not mean I am not a fully loyal droid willing to serve its master. Right, Master?
Wooskied says, yeah, and when you are reborn, you don't come back as you come back as something different. Yeah, it's kind of immortality, but not the kind that most people actually strive for. And it's the kind of immortality in the sense that, yeah, my atoms that make up my body were once part of someone else. Like, almost certainly. But who cares? Right? I don't care. Certainly the person whose atoms are now part of my body, he and or she don't care either. So why should anyone, really? Tell me what you can, then.
Observation. I am sure you are aware of the majority of my skills, Master. I can handle various sorts of heavy weaponry with ease. My physical abilities are well above those of your average meatbag, as are my sensor functions. An assassin, if you would.
An assassin?
Caution, shh, Master. Such a function in a droid is highly illegal.
I won't tell anyone.
Commentary. Good, for I would truly hate to be turned into spare scrap, Master. That would be a waste of my genius engineering. Answer. My assassination functions are currently non-functional, having been deactivated by the meatbag Yukalaka on Tatooine. Were they functional, you as my master would be able to specify a target, and I would operate independently to the best of my ability to terminate it.
Cool! Terrifying! Catholic Phoenix says, speaking of coffee, I tried your idea of espresso orange juice, and I've taken a liking to it. Yes. I feel like I'm propagandizing for this ridiculous concept. I told you, it's weirdly good. It is not the kind of thing that you would expect to even be palatable, but it's weirdly good. I actually really like it. This kid forgot how hilarious HK is. Yeah, he's like, it's like a plague. Oh, the espresso orange juice is like a plague. It's spreading. Let's just hope it spreads faster than monkeypox. Anyway, speaking of plagues, my stream from Thursday is back up for some reason. I didn't change anything, but it's back up. I guess Susan is now okay with me saying obviously true things about COVID. I don't know. Anyway, it's back up now. For those of you who don't know, how I've been keeping up on the Discord and such, my stream from Thursday got taken down, presumably because I was talking about vaccines and masks and stuff like that. So, poof, disappeared for a couple of days, came back yesterday, Saturday, something like that, over this weekend. But it's back now. It's up as normal. There's still an unlisted version there. In there somewhere you can find links and such, just in case it's needed, but yeah. Whisket says it's a mimetic virus. Yeah, exactly. That's what a meme is. Espresso and orange juice it's a meme. Oh yes, to clarify. Hold on. Do this. Hold on. Let's take this out. It's very important. It's very important that I get this very clear. Mama Susan Wojcicki, I would like to clarify that COVID is real. Okay, we're good. Let's put that back. Boop. All right, boop. Anyway, felt I needed to do that just to compensate for last time. In which, by the way, I was also sure to clarify that, but who the hell knows? Anyway, is it so HK? Has your assassination function been used like a lot? Oh, Catholic Phoenix says you're spreading Catholicism and espresso orange juice. I am honored. Those are two wonderful things to spread. One far more so than the other, but the other's a nice bonus too.
Answer. I have no way of knowing that, Master. My memory has been deleted, remember?
Yes, I remember that. Is there any way to repair you?
Answer. Some of my motor functions can be safely repaired, Master, but anything in relation to my memory core is extremely sensitive. I have safeguards installed to protect that core that I cannot deactivate. It is not impossible that other, lesser memory functions could be restored, however.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna get bonked off stream again, so I'm not going over it. Not this time. I've other than just a joke about it. The whole thing started when I was talking about the misinformation board, by the way, which was fun, and I'm very glad that we cyberbullied it out of existence. But if you want, like I said last time, the stream from last time is back up, so go check it out. It's in like the middle hour or so. Starts at around like, I don't know, 2. It was when I was in the Elven Ruins, so like 1:30 through 2:05, 2:10, something like that. So yeah, go ahead, check it out. Get some thoughts. So I can restore your memory.
Answer. You may attempt to restore portions of my deleted memory, Master, but some skill at repair is required. The deeper functions of my core memory, however, would still be unadvisable to tamper with. Conjecture. It is possible that some external stimulus might result in the memory core being reactivated, but I am unaware of any program existence to do so.
So you're saying that your memory might just come back?
Conjecture. There may be hidden programming that awaits certain conditions to reactivate my memory core, Master, but there is no way to know. It is quite possible that tampering has simply erased my core permanently. If that is so, a meatbag will surely pay.
Wizkid says, oh, that's unconstitutional as frick. But he didn't say frick. Yeah, but since when do they care? It's part of the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, which is also unconstitutional. But to see if they care. No one has cared about the Constitution for, like, centuries. No one in power, at least. Not since at least Jefferson. He only cared because he wrote it. Wait. No, he didn't. What the hell? No, Madison wrote it. He signed it, so I guess he has to care a little bit. Anyway, Biscuit says, you've also spread the cult of Razorfist, which is good because he's the older brother I wish I had. Razorfist is great. He's fantastic. I've been loving some of his gaming live streams. He did a stream of a Solomon Kane tabletop last week that looked really cool. It's apparently, as a tabletop, it's also apparently like gratuitously expensive. It's like $300 or something, because it comes with like a few dozen minis, like miniatures, a few different scenario books, and a bunch of like props and things. It's wildly elaborate, but it's really cool. Check out the stream. It was I think the archive's up. It was really neat. Oh yeah, also he does good political commentary. So, what do I do about this restoring your memory thing?
Answer. Simply tell me that you wish to make the attempt, Master, and I will attempt to walk you through it. Please do be careful.
Let's do it.
Conjecture. There may be hidden programming that awaits certain conditions to reactivate my memory core, Master, but there is no way to know. It is quite possible that tampering has simply erased my core permanently. If that is so, a meatbag...
Alright, we said this. I would like to try restoring some of your memory.
Affirmative. If you believe your skills are up to the task, Master, then I can certainly guide you through the process. Request. I only ask that you be oh so very careful, Master. I am too valuable and well-crafted to perish at the hands of ineptitude.
Let's get started. Wizkid says, yeah, I keep seeing notifications for it, but if I watch more live streams that literally do nothing else, that's fair.
Statement. As you wish, Master. The first stage is the simple one, and that is accessing my central control cluster. This may take take a while. First, you will need to open 3 panels. But I need those circuits, Master. Please, Master, do not destroy my chips out of frustration. Calm yourself. I implore you.
Oops.
Supplication. Perhaps it would be best if you desisted your efforts for the moment, Master. This seems to be going nowhere.
Very well. We'll do this later. Sorry about that.
As you desire, Master. I cannot help but claim a small amount of relief.
Oops.
Signing off.
RAHK. I'm bad at that stuff. Alright, let's go to Kashyyyk. It's about time. Actually, let's talk to Zalbar, see if he has anything to say about Kashyyyk before we go. Witzkid says, I like him because he reminds me of me, but more metal. Yes, he's very, very metal. He's so metal, he's in grayscale. I can only aspire to that level of sick burns he dishes out on a video-by-video basis. And he even does them live, too. He's really witty, even live, which is very impressive. So for something you want... I have a little stowaway problem, actually. I cannot help with that. Okay, fine. Can anyone? Have anything more to say about yourself, Zarbar? A lot of my life depth, but no. You don't trust me? Nothing personal, but no. The ways of my people are not for outsiders to know. I'll leave you be then. Thank you. Alright, nothing yet. Well, we're going to your people, so I'd love to know, but... Wizkid says, I like him... Oh yeah, you already said that. I already read that. Whatever. Alright. Let's go to Kashyyyk. You know, that one planet from the holiday special. Also a bunch of other places. Also, I should note, also from Kashyyyk. Also from Fallen Order. I've mentioned Fallen Order before and some of the problems I have with it. Most of which are from a thematic perspective. Whiskey says, "Oh, really? Maybe I do need to check out some of those live streams then." It's honestly impressive. It's part of his being now. Yeah, it comes with practice, really. It really does. It's how I manage to. It's part of the reason I do a lot of this kind of a live stream is so that I can learn to relatively quickly collect my thoughts and answer to questions, which realistically is for teaching. The same thing I do with teaching, except over different topics and a different kind of depth. So it's really a skill that you can develop, the kind of quick wit that you need to respond to things quickly, whether it's wit in terms of comedy or insult type stuff and comebacks and all that, or if it's just wit in terms of the ability to answer questions and think quickly on your feet. It's a skill that you really do need to cultivate if you want to have it, and it's a very worthwhile skill to take the time to cultivate. And this kind of thing really does help with it immensely, I've found at least. As I was saying, though, I think that Jedi Fallen Order, which notably goes to Kashyyyk. First of all, the depiction of Kashyyyk in Fallen Order is the best that I think we've seen since KOTOR. Because this is a fantastic depiction of Kashyyyk. It's amazing. Love it. It's a little bit smallish. Especially the dark lands down beneath the trees. But the depiction in Fallen Order is very, very good. Is this frozen? Oh no, here we go. Okay. I had to click. So the thing that lets me always roll nat 20s when I talk to pretty girls IRL. No, you still roll the die. It just gives you a higher bonus, that's all. You can still screw it up. Don't get me wrong. Oh, we get another vision. Cool. Phoenix says, my wife just found out that I had an espresso orange juice. She was repulsed by the idea of it. Well, mine is too, as you know. Here we go. It's on the ground. It's in the Shadowlands. Yeah, so you're not alone in wives feeling repulsed by espresso orange juice. The difference is my wife doesn't even like coffee. So... Am I correct in saying that the closest flavor profile I could possibly compare it to is like one of those like chocolate oranges? That's like the closest thing flavor profile wise, I think. Wizkid says that I don't. Well, rarely I have cult leader charisma. It seems. Use it. Use it for good.
Another vision. The Force is guiding us, helping us retrace the steps of Malak and his old master.
Go be a priest.
Leading us ever closer to the Star Forge. Kashyyyk is a lush but simple and undeveloped world. I would not have expected to find the alien technology of a star map here.
I mean, yeah, we Catholics really do need homiletics. Better homiletics than we have. We've got, like... I can probably count the good Catholic homilists in the world on my fingers and toes. High-profile ones, probably one hand. So, man, you got charisma. Make use of it. That's all I'm saying. Not all I'm saying. I'm obviously saying a lot more than that, but that's all I'm saying about this. Whisket says, that's what I'm planning on doing. It's a good thing I've always had God in my life, otherwise I'd be an absolute monster. As is the case with most of us, I think. Before I took religion very seriously, in middle school and high school, I was kind of a monster. Middle school especially, I was a nasty little sociopath in middle school. Thankfully, I was talking about Platonic education. A lot of the sort of physical discipline and physical training such that I did in high school really helped with that. Helped sort of discipline me into a relatively well-adjusted, ethical person. Between Kung Fu, which I practiced very, very stringently for years. But then also, and maybe more importantly, and more integrative in the Platonic sense as well, was marching band. Really helped with socializing me. All of that helped sort of once the rationality that brought me to religion fell into place, which really, fittingly, I would say, really clicked with a sort of Platonic ascent, the kind of thing that Augustine experienced early in life, seeing things fit into place in a sort of mystical way that mirrors the kind of Platonic ascent through examining things, and then examining the natures of things, and then examining the nature of being, and then examining that which is responsible for being, and then coming to an idea, a pure idea, a slight glimpse into something as close to the beatific vision that we can experience in this life. It's very much like it was very much. I analogize it very closely to St. Augustine's vision at not Ostia, Milan, I think, the first of his visions, because it was purely intellectual and it wasn't communal and it wasn't even particularly religious, even though it did give him a glimpse at God, and what drove him to Catholicism, really, and taking his faith seriously and abandoning Manichaeism and all of that. And this was, by the way, maybe most notably, before I ever read the Confessions. So before I ever read Augustine's account of all this, I basically experienced the same thing. So when I read Augustine's account of it, I just, like, I saw there what I had seen in my mind. Wizkid says, for me, it was a combination of scouting and horrifically crushing social isolation. Wasn't it? I don't know how good that is, but if it works, it works, I guess. 15-year-old, maybe I should just commit die and take everyone with me. Wizkid ultimately gave rise to the me you see today. Well, I'm glad it turned out this way, rather than the alternatives. Certainly. Again, it's one of those there, but for the grace of God, and go, why? You can at least, it's good at least to acknowledge the path you could have gone down, and the evil that could have been. Okay? Oh. Yeah. As I was saying, though, before we do land on Kashyyyk, entirely getting to today, but that's fine. It's okay. I did actually want to talk about Fallen Order. So I will. I want to talk about it, but warning for some spoilers. Careful, because it's a new. It's not that new a game. It came out 4 years ago now, 2018, I think. Was it 19? I think it was 18. It was very good. It was very good. It was one of the better stories told in the new canon, in the new Disney canon. I think it's probably surpassed by the Siege of Mandalore in the Clone Wars series finale. But other than that, it's very well done. That said, there are some thematic problems with it that I don't much care for. And the biggest problem I see with it, I actually wrote some of this down, so let me just go through my notes in particular. I think my biggest problem with the overall narrative, the overall story, is that you spend the entire game pursuing a goal, only to abandon it at the end. I'm trying to be vague here. But basically you discover, through your experience, that the best thing to do is to do nothing. Is to abandon the goal, to abandon the fight, because of the harm it might cause. Even though knowing that harm is necessary for the cause to be fulfilled, and that cause is worthwhile, the cost is too great, so at least one would think. And then so further, rather than allowing that to rather than setting it aside and allowing it to be done later at a more appropriate time, the method or the means to accomplish that goal is destroyed. And again, I'm trying to be very vague here. But the means to accomplish the goal is destroyed, so it cannot be done later. I don't like that. It's deciding to abandon the right, the good, the goal that one is pursuing and has been pursuing this entire time, rather than pursuing it all the way through. The other weird part that I don't like about the Fallen Order is that the whole journey is one of what I think we would call self-empowerment. That it's all about coming to... It's really common in modern storytelling. It's the same thing that I was talking about with Critical Drinker noticed. That the struggle of Cal throughout Cal Kestis, the main character in Fallen Order, the whole struggle is about coming to grips with himself and coming to realize that he really was this powerful all along, that he really could do it all along. It's wrestling. His enemy is self-doubt. His enemy is in his own mind rather than external. He really could defeat the external foes the entire time. He just needed the confidence to do it. That's wildly unhealthy because that is not what we actually struggle with. Not most of us, not most of the time. And when we do struggle with it, that's only the first step. Then we actually need to become competent. It's very, very dangerous. Very dangerous to think in those terms. Because we can start to think that, if only we were empowered, we could do anything we like, and then the world crushes us underfoot because we have no skills once we think we do. I generally despise empowerment stories. In part because I don't understand what empowerment really means, fundamentally. Other than just, self-confidence, I guess. Really clear what that means. Beyond that. But besides that, it's Cal is not learning to become more competent in the world that he inhabits or anything like that. What he's doing, essentially, the entire game is learning to overcome his own internal obstacles rather than overcoming anything external to himself. And when he does finally confront something that he cannot beat, the only thing he can do is run. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about at the end. The thing that he had been confronting the entire time, he knew he could beat from the beginning. It's just he could have beaten from the beginning. It's only that he had to learn that he could do so. But then when he confronts a real threat at the end, he can only run. It's the danger of that kind of story. And it's what I don't like about that kind of story as well. Anyway, on the same note, WizKid says, yeah, those weren't fun times, and that's why I felt drawn to psychotherapy. Psychotherapy often, I think, focuses far too much on this kind of thing. On empowerment, if you would call it that. WizKid, maybe you can clarify, what the hell does empowerment mean, and you can clarify this. It's still unclear to me. But he continues, sorry, I know well the dark thoughts of men. God has gifted me with the compassion necessary to help others actually deal with it. And that's, in some cases, absolutely necessary. Overcoming the dark within ourselves. Far more so than again, I think, the empowerment thing. I maybe I'm just not fully understanding what the concept means. Maybe that needs to be clarified for me. But from my understanding of it, I think it's more dangerous than it is helpful. Phoenix says, lonely kids have two options: become a Catholic extremist or become a school shooter. Jesus. WizKid, an absolute gigachad for making the right decision. Yeah, no, I think lonely kids have other options. You can just become a lonely adult, too. Just be sad forever, which is not a good option. But it's really more of a middle-of-the-road option. It's not the worst option, for sure. Yeah, but having problems achieving a social circle or gaining a social circle, it will necessarily lead you to some kind of extremism. Just make sure it leads you to a good kind of extremism in pursuit of virtue, not vice. All right. So anyway, you think the Wookiees were involved?
The Wookies of Kashuk make their home high among the Rosha branches. Only their bravest warriors dare to descend into the forbidding depths of the forest. If the star map is located far beneath us on the planet's surface, as our vision seems to suggest, it's unlikely the Wookiees even know of its existence. No doubt things will become more clear once we discover the star map's location.
Okay, then. WizKid says, in a psychotherapeutic sense, empowerment simply means helping people develop the tools to help themselves. Like, okay, but what is it? I still don't know what that means. That seems too vague to me. Where it falls flat is the fact that, like Lewis said, we can't actually give moral instruction. And I think you can. I think that the separation of moral instruction from the psychological is a terrible fault and a flaw in modern psychology. Psychology, suke logos, is the logic or the study of the soul, which includes virtue. To separate moral psychology from non-normative but trying to be normative psychology, it's nonsensical ultimately. I think that's part of one of the greatest flaws in sort of secular psychology, because it tries so desperately to be ethically neutral, whereas that sort of thing is really impossible. Phoenix says, I get what you mean when you say that empowerment is the start, but not the end. When I train young teen to sword fight, I start with building confidence and build up skills from there. I think, in my experience, confidence comes with competence. And if you become confident before you're competent, then you're never going to become competent. The way to develop confidence, in my experience at least, and I've taught that sort of thing as well to some degree, is to get someone to see their own improvements. So if you're teaching somebody to fight, or you're teaching somebody martial arts, or you're teaching somebody to any skill really, if you can teach them to improve, even if it's marginally, then point that out and say, look at this, look, you've done it. You're getting better. You're improving. You're doing what you weren't able to do before. That's what gives confidence. But if confidence comes before that, then you're not going to improve. You might accidentally. but not as part of the process. The feedback loop doesn't start kicking in unless competence starts first. At least, again, and this is my experience with it. But this also applies to academic subjects as well. Like, if you don't get better at, say, writing, if you don't start learning the skills needed, you're not going to become more confident at it. If you don't know your stuff, you're not going to be confident in your test taking or whatever. Wizkid says resilience, psychic armor, self-reliance, the ability to deal with problems in a non-self-destructive way. That sort of thing, it's hard, and even people like Jung don't seem to get it completely. I don't know, man. It seems... I don't know how to say this, but... it seems like so many other things, modern clinical psychology is another one of those fields, another one of those disciplines, like modern philosophy. So I'm criticizing my own colleagues about this as well. But it's one of those fields where we moderns are desperately trying to rediscover what the ancients knew so very clearly. And by the ancients, I mean basically the Socratics. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, moving through that tradition, through the Stoics, through the early Christians, and through the Scholastic period, what they knew perfectly well, we are desperately trying to rediscover, and we are, functionally speaking, at the philosophical and I would say psychological level of the pre-Socratics at best. That applies to metaphysics. That applies to study of causality, and so sciences. That applies to psychology. That applies to ethics, probably more than anything. McIntyre absolutely was right about this. Alistair McIntyre and After Virtue. I cannot recommend highly enough reading After Virtue by Alistair McIntyre, even if only the introduction, the first chapter, which really sets out the stage of what is wrong with our moral understanding in current year. Not current year exactly. He wrote this in the 80s, but it still applies 40 years later. Phoenix says with sword fighting, it's important to build confidence first. A lot of smaller kids are timid, especially when fighting bigger kids. The confidence allows them to overcome the fear and get started. See, when I learned martial arts, and this includes even like armed martial arts or sword fighting, sword fighting and such, that confidence only came through technique, through knowledge of technique, which you learn individually rather than you learn individually first and then you apply it to sparring. That's the sort of traditional martial arts way, the Eastern at least. I never learned HEMA formally, HEMA or fencing or anything formally. Western martial arts, but Eastern martial arts, you learn it technique first. The weapon becomes part of you first before you actually start sparring or applying. And so that's where the confidence comes from, is learning first. And the same goes for unarmed as well, empty hand sparring and such. To spar, you have to know your technique first, and you learn the technique independently, then you apply it. Again, maybe there's another way of doing this, but that's what I've always found, and that's what I've always done. That's what I found to be by far the most effective, especially in terms of building confidence. Wizkid said, like at the shelter I'm interning at right now, our job is to help get the guys up and off their feet and competent enough to actually stay off the streets. I don't know. I'm still... So if it's things like coping strategies, like psychological coping strategies, that doesn't match with what I usually hear empowerment. Like, let me give you an example. I have been told that Captain Marvel, the film, is empowering to women. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? I don't understand that. Wizkid says, I'd like some sort of martial tradition in my life. Scouts was good because it gave me a better appreciation for nature, solidified my moral compass, but I never had the hobby that really got me moving my body with grace and confidence. Traditional Mitsung Kung Fu, I can't recommend highly enough. it's great. It is a very good blend of internal discipline with external physical discipline. It's kinesthetic, getting the mind and body working together, and it does the grace and confidence thing really well. No, I'm not nearly as graceful or as physically conditioned as I used to be. Obviously, a lot of that I can blame on metabolism. A lot of that I can blame on habit, bad habit. But most of it I blame on myself. I do need to get back in shape, honestly. I'm not going to get back into the shape I was in my teens and early 20s, but I can certainly do better than I am now. Yeah, I recommend more. I always recommend more traditional martial arts. Pick your favorite. It doesn't really, it matters which, kind of. But rather than sort of learning mixed martial arts, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or maybe HEMA can be fine, but again, that tends to be more sparring-like, more sparring-focused than it is in technique-focused. Well, that's not fair. No, it is technique-focused. Not so much. It doesn't have the internal aspect. Oh, all right. See you later, Phoenix. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time. But yeah, I think that the traditional Eastern martial arts do a very fantastic job. So at least if they're not overly mystical, because I know you have problems with that, WizKid. But I think they do a fantastic job of integrating mind and body very well. Even if their techniques are not always perfectly optimized, like modern MMA, that doesn't necessarily matter. So long as you have once you sort of unite mind and body and hone your body into you, then you can learn more techniques and expand out from there much more easily. So I think from what I've seen and what I know, the best MMA fighters are those that started with a proper traditional singular martial art and expanded out, because they have that baseline. WizKid says, well, empowering the political sense especially means taking masculine drive and vigor, pushing it into a feminine frame. When I speak of empowerment, I mean what it actually should be. But what do those have to do with each other? That has to have something to do with each other, right? It's not just like using the same word. It's not purely equivocal. There has to be at least some analogy between the two, and I don't see it. Unless it just literally means confidence. But even then, it's not really confidence seeing someone else do... I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't understand it. WizKid says, mind-body integration is what I'm looking for. If I can find that, then maybe I'll move on to actually learning how to bonk people. You can always... This is going to sound... Yes, maybe it's for old people, but I honestly, starting with Tai Chi is not a bad idea. Tai Chi is applicable. It needs to be edited and modified to apply it to actual fighting and such, but it trains absolute control over one's body in a very careful, methodical way. So it's a good place to start, and it's calming and meditative as well. Yeah. Doo-doo-doo-doo. You know anything about the planet we're on? I should hope so. You're from here. I've been away from Kashyyyk a long time, but things look the same as I left them. Slavers will still hold my people prisoner. I'm not sure what I could tell you or even what I would want to. You're an outsider here, too. It angers me. Okay, that's it. We'll talk later. I have an idea of what it means, but I'm struggling with how to describe it in a non-verbal way. Describe it in a verbal way, please. That is the only way things can be reasonably described via text, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't know. Let's take Mission in Zalbar. Why not? Let's take our nice pair here, yeah? Once we go into the Shadowlands, we'll take Zalbar and we'll switch out Mission. Should we take Mission? Once we go into the Shadowlands, we're gonna need to take Bastila as the star map. Yeah, let's take Mission just for purely story reasons. Wiskid says, empowerment is one of these politically loaded words that it's infuriating to try and actually unpack. Greetings to you. Well, I am pleased to welcome you to planet G5623. I do not see your ship on my docking schedule. The Zerka Corporation will see your deeds, of course, but there will be a 100 credit docking fee. In advance, I fear. Yeah, it's... A lot of those terms get politically loaded and then lose all coherent meaning, unfortunately. So maybe it is. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's all. Maybe that's all it is. And that's what I'm... That's the problem I'm detecting with it. It's outside my expertise, so that's probably why I'm befuddled by such confusions. Could I get some information about the planet? I thought this was Kashyyyk. That is what the dominant indigenous species calls the world, but maintaining this outpost grants Zerka Corporation naming rights in the trade guilds. But I'm sorry, I really must insist the docking fees be paid before I impart any further services. I must follow proper procedure. Upon collection of the correct fees, I will extend what resources the Zerka Corporation can offer. I'm sure you understand. Is the price negotiable? Very simply put, no. Operation of these remote outposts is an expensive endeavor. I represent wealthy clients. You should let me pass. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I don't feel like arguing. I'll consider a promise of future business payment enough. I see you have a Wookiee with you. Can I assume you understand their language? For a fee, Zerka Corporation can provide a translator for during your visit. That will not be necessary. I understand more than you can know. Oh man, yes. Let's be Ron Swanson here. I understand more than you can know. Very well. It's no concern of mine. I will simply assume you are one of the rare sort that take languages easily. Now then, please follow me to our information center. I will answer any further questions there. Okay. I will say, like, if I can understand your language, which is spoken out of two mouths, I mean, I should be able to understand Sherwook. Right? Anyway. Beats. Prove 2 weapon fighting. Level up. Skills. Skills. Accept. Level up. Skills. Same. 3. Every time. Beats. Master 2 weapon fighting. Accept. Alright, good. Okay! Wiskid says, well, they definitely mean something important or profound by it. But it's also marred by so marred by their obsession with power dynamics that it essentially means nothing outside of that paradigm. Yeah, that sounds right. I have really gotten a lot of value out of James Lindsay.
No problem. Got it.
Doing the what's it called? Doing the
no problem.
Translations
Got
from
it.
Wokish or whatever he calls them, where he takes a term that's used by the wokeism, and translates it into something that is comprehensible to a person who can think. If Han Solo can understand Wookish, it's called Sherwook is the language. I think freaking Revan would be fine. I mean, he doesn't know who we are, so... Also, not everyone knows that. Spoilers. That is the spoiler. Okay, you work for Zerka. You work for... What do you do for Zerka? Not a real employee, just strut in, just load cargo. Ship comes in and works for the day, mostly just play Pazak. Sure, let's play Pazak. Low stakes. Let's go, sure. Deedly, play. Good side deck. Intern. Anyway. Wookish sounds more natural. It's not, it's Sherwook, because it's in their language. Oh. Let's risk it for the biscuit. Oh, I won. Cool. Good risk. Did you say Wookish? Because I was just talking about Wokish in the James Lindsay context. Should I go for it? Now let's end. Let's see. Oh. Oh. Alright, we tied. Alright. Yeah, that, like I said, that's a good series. On the new Discourses channel, I think it's called. It's pretty great. Very useful. Yay! This guy sucks. Wizkid says, what? Oh, so this is what Pazak is. I was wondering that ever since I joined Pazak posting. Yeah, this is what Pazak posting is. This is what Pazak is. It is basically Space Blackjack. Oh, you beat me fair on that hand. It was pretty well played. A few mistakes I shouldn't have. Yada 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 yada. Nah, that's it. No, you haven't watched much Lindsay? Isn't he kind of far right? No, he's a leftist. He's a recovering leftist. He's like left of Dave Rubin. No, James Lindsay made a big name for himself as one of the new atheists. Not even that big of a name, but a name for himself as one of the new atheists in like the early onesies. And then eventually he just started noticing, and he's a mathematician by training. He just started noticing that there was a bunch of crap going on where people were being absolutely ridiculous and not making a lick of sense when they were saying things. And so suddenly he noticed that, you know, things were going insane. And tried desperately to fix it, basically. But to point out the problem and to notice that that there were notice exactly the things that were going wrong with wokeism and try to point those things out and say, hey, here's all what's going wrong. He was involved specifically in that what's it called? What was it? The whole that set of
Yes?
fake papers that were submitted to a bunch of woke journals, like the one where he slightly edited a large section of Mein Kampf, and it got accepted to some feminist journals. That's probably why I ignored everything he said. Yeah, a lot of those guys are still kind of cringe when it comes to ethics and religion, but yeah, they get this right at least. He's actually decently good on. He's honestly getting to be better on religion. He's not as bad, nearly as bad as he used to be. But every once in a while you'll still get some crap. Like I put this in the Discord last week or so. Brett Weinstein. I think it's Weinstein. The guy who basically got the biologist who got drummed out of whatever university it was because he didn't want to leave campus for being white, basically. That whole thing. Evergreen University, I think. That whole mess. He is also very atheistic, and he sat down and had an hour or so long chat with Bishop Barron last week, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And they really got hung up on the grounding problem for metaethics. And at some point, Weinstein said something very close to, ultimately, there's nothing wrong with genocide. At that point, I'm just like, well, now we're lost. Now we're not talking anymore. We're not having a conversation anymore. You're not thinking like a person. You're being overly reductionist about everything to the point of not being able to think. You are, as Lewis said, taking out your eyes so that you can look at them. Again, the poison of subjectivism strikes here worse than ever. I'll put that again. Poison of Subjectivism was a great essay by Lewis, and I'll put a link in the description about it. There's a good one. There's a good C.S. Lewis doodle of it, but it was one of the ones that was taken down. I have an archive copy, so it's up on my channel, but it's unlisted. I'll put it up there. It really helps to solve the problems here, the grounding problem. Anyway, yeah, Wizkid says, I didn't even realize that was him. Absolutely insane that those fools didn't realize they literally Hitler. Yes, he literally said, ultimately, there's nothing wrong with genocide. I was like, yeah, there is. Yeah, no, there really is. You need to stop it. Greetings to you, human. It would seem the call of the hunt has brought us to this troubled world. I have not been here long, but I can already see that we will not be as welcome here as I had hoped. What are you doing here, Coman? Why did you leave your home on Tatooine? It was a hard decision, but I felt I had no other choice. I had done a disservice to the apex predator of that world. It was time to go. I've come here to seek a greater prey than we faced on Tatooine, but the climate here is politically cold, and I don't know if I would be allowed to hunt. What permission are you looking for? An astute question. Zerk Corporation seems in control here, but they don't care if I wander the Shadowlands, so long as I have paid their docking fee. Instead, I hope to gain the trust of the native Wookiee population. I'm not here just to kill the biggest thing I can find. I want to understand how they hunt. Wizkid says, subjectivism is only good insofar as economics is concerned. It's not. But I'll clarify in a moment. Subjective theory of value is the only thing objectively good about subjectivism. Subjective theory of value is not subjectivism. They're very different things. Subjective theory of value is about subjective valuation. Evaluation, not subjective value. It's not that value is determined by the subjective valuation. It is just observing that we subjectively value things. And that is a different consideration from the objective value of things. And economics is not concerned with the objective intrinsic value of things, but rather it is concerned about, it is the science of the subjective valuation of things. It is a split, it is a delineation. It is not saying that this one's important, that one's not. It's saying that this is a thing, this is a different thing, and that our science is going to study this thing, and that thing's a separate issue. That's what the subjective theory of value is doing. That's it. Saying that value is subjective in the very strong sense that a lot of Austrians get stuck doing is why traditionalists hate economics, and it's why traditionalists hate libertarians. And I know you get this difference, but it's very important that this distinction is made at every possible opportunity, so we don't have more and more and more rads who think economics is just some kind of nasty Enlightenment ideology, and therefore dismissing it entirely, making horrible decisions that affect millions of people, if only they could attain power that they so desperately want, because they don't understand this. Yeah, it drives me insane. It drives me nuts, really. Because it's again, like I said, it's the difference between valuation and value. The value of something is objective, but we value things subjectively and independently. Because I value something for certain ends, those ends can be good or bad, or better or worse. But the fact that I need something more than someone else does, because it is more important to my good ends than to their good ends, means that I subjectively value it more than they do. But if they have a greater capability of acquiring it than I do, that also alters the situation. So again, this is what economics is about. Wizkid says, so when are we going to play Bioshock and complain loudly about Ayn Rand's particular brand of autistic screeching? Well, we're going to play KOTOR 2 and complain loudly about Ayn Rand's particular brand of autistic screeching, because it's coming out of Krea's mouth the whole time. Bioshock, I don't know if I would really want to play it on stream. Maybe, because it has one big idea. Maybe. I don't know. I'd think about it. This kid says, oh, like the Distributus. Yes. Yeah. I stopped watching him when he realized he fundamentally doesn't understand why the MGTOW movement exists. How do you mean? I barely ever followed him at all. So what do you mean exactly by that? I'm curious. What are you doing to gain the trust of the Wookiees? Very little. I'm sure they have enough off-worlders like the Zerka claiming good intentions. I'll simply try to stay out of their way. I've heard of an off-worlder that has gained respect by living in the Shadowlands for years. Perhaps I will attempt the same. You could just be Hunter Tales, though. Alright, I gotta leave. Goodbye. Well, please, perhaps we'll meet again. A great hunt on this world would be glorious. Erica says, I'd play it for you so you can comment without being distracted every 5 seconds by playing the game. That might be alright. That might be alright. Speaking of distractions, Kashyyyk, my home. I have prepared you for coming. I should have prepared you for coming here, but I don't know if I prepared myself. Prepared me? What do you mean? I didn't leave Kashyyyk voluntarily. The mission must have told you how I was fleeing slavers. But there was more. I'm in exile. The slavers on Kashyyyk only took me after I was forced to leave my village home 20 years ago. Don't forget, Wookiees live for a very long time. Average Wookiee lifespan is like 400 or 500 years. Why were you forced to leave, Zalbar? My brother made deals with the slavers and allowed them to get a foothold. I found out and attacked him. The fight was stopped, but my father did not believe me when I told him about my brother's actions. I was made an exile, disowned by my home and people. I should not be here. They will not accept me back. Time has passed. Things will have changed. The slavers are still here. This dock is theirs. I doubt anybody has risen to try and fight. Nothing has changed. I just hope I can prove myself to my people. It will be difficult to make them listen. I just don't know. Why didn't your father believe you? When I attacked my brother, I was so mad. I used my claws. You don't understand what that means to a Wookiee. Our claws are tools, not weapons. To use them in battle is to become an animal. It is madness without honor. I am forever a mad claw in the eyes of my people. Nothing I say is to be trusted. You are right to cast me out. We'll deal with that if we have to. Let's go. I don't have much hope. WizKid says he didn't, about Distributist, he didn't understand that MGTOW exists as a reaction to the god-awful way most people go about having relationships nowadays, and specifically because women both hold all the cards and have unrealistic expectations. He's an alright guy, although he dunks on JP, his dunks on Jordan Peterson annoy me, but dude really doesn't understand some more people-y parts of the culture war. That's unfortunately common. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I think that all sounds quite right. That yeah, the MGTOW movement is really just a response to exactly the kinds of problems that trads like him are decrying. But he says that the MGTOW movement is ridiculous and stupid. Well, yeah, it is, but it's obviously a natural response of secular people to secular problems because they don't understand the problems. That's what I think he really misses. So what's with these two? This guy looks like Kanan without a ponytail.
So, new
doesn't sound like him.
spaces
Holy
have come
crap!
to wild Kashyyyk. Please look well upon the wares of Eli Gand.
Eli
I live
Gand.
to serve your needs.
Just be sure to pay cash. The interest on his loans will drain you like a diluvian fatworm on a hut's backside.
First
Ugh,
off,
whatever that
hearts
means.
are all backside. Secondly, I don't much like the comparison. No need to get personal. It's just business. Poor fellow. He's been waiting for his friends to return with my money for a standard month now. But you don't need to hear this. What can I get you?
Do you always enslave your debtors?
Enslave? I resent that. Simply fair business.
I resemble that
This
remark.
man's fellow's left without settling their debts, so he must make up the difference.
I know, it's standard trading rules. I just want to know where my crew went. I was only gone for 2 days. This isn't like them.
Yes, very sad that they would abandon you, especially while you were doing me a favor and helping repair one of my freighters.
Something about this whole situation stinks worse than an overcrowded Ronto stable. What kind of friends would just abandon a crewmate?
You think you know someone and they turn out to be a cheat. Oh, not like you, Matten. You honor your deals. A word is a bond in trade.
Do your debtors have a habit of running off?
It happens from time to time. Credits are scarce out here, and not everyone is as honest as Mr. Daisel here.
You'll get your money. My crew will be back.
Of course they will. Until then, however, I can make use of you as a mechanic. Very rare to find skills of your kind out here.
How much debt buys a man's life?
Oh, it isn't about the amount. After all, As a skilled mechanic, Matten is worth much more than what is owed, especially on this remote planet.
Oh, you flatter me, Eli. I guess we're best buddies now.
As I was saying, it's a matter of principle. I'm nothing if not honest in my dealings, and I demand the same. He'll be free to go when his friends turn up and the debt is paid. I honor my deals. Let no one say otherwise.
He did something to get rid of the crew. I'm, like, sure of it. Biscuit says, MGTOWs aren't all incels. Some are, and they should be rightfully shunned, but most guys like that are simply fed up with the way relationships are and have decided to not bother with them. I think it's dumb. I'm not really that insecure with my lack of sex life. It's more of a choice for me, but I definitely understand where they're coming from. I mean, yeah, like, it becoming a weird cultural thing is just the secular society's attempt at claiming a kind of celibacy, almost a monastic celibacy, but without the orientation towards God. It's just the worship of self. The tendency of it, though, is I think you're right. It's not a rejection of women per se, or even of sex per se, or of anything like that. What it's a rejection of is it's rejecting the kind of, quite frankly, disgusting dating rituals of, modern secular society, which is correct to reject, is right to reject that sort of thing. It's just they're rejecting it in favor of self-worship for the most part, rather than rejecting it in favor of either traditional relationship norms or dedication to God. Either of the two callings, the two major vocations, marriage or religious life. Yes. Also, if I disappear, I apologize in advance. Storm just came rolling in. There's a bunch of thundercracks, and there's the rain. So we'll see. Hopefully power's fine. Hopefully internet's fine. But if not, well, good night in advance. Otherwise, though, if power and internet holds, I'll be still going till midnight. I'll keep up until then. Anyway, back to my other questions.
Of course. I'm here to...
Let me see what you carry.
Of course.
Anything worth buying. 3,500 credits. Jeez. 10,000. Yeesh. Shield versus electrical style. Okay. Cyber reaction system. Dexterity 3. Ooh, implant level 3 though. Jesus. Nah, I don't need Gizka poison. I'm not going to poison my poor little Gizkas. They're cute. I'm going to keep them on my ship. Eyeless as they might be, they're deeply disturbing little creatures, but I love them so much. Right, Erica? Gizkas. They're so cute. What do I have to sell? Anything useful? Anything... I mean, technically anything unuseful. Boobity boobity boop. Bah. I don't think... Oh, worth nothing. Thomasut, Kalinord, Stun Batten, Red Crystal. Sell a Heavy Blaster. Anything worth selling? Nah, I think I'm good. Alright. Erica says, what's disturbing? Pretend like I'm not actually listening, because I'm usually not. I was saying Gizkas. Gizkas, those cute little creatures that you love so much. The ones without eyes. Wizkid said it's a rejection of the current relationship paradigm. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it than I was. Understandable, but not the kind of thing that's worth throwing away your entire life, the entire other half of the human race for. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, the things with no eyes that just literally empty skull holes? Yeah, I love them. They're so cute. Okay, this is Zerka with a critter in a cage. That's okay. Let's just loot everything in here real quick. Hold on, excuse me. Excuse me. I'm just stealing all your stuff. All right. This is that guy, the authority guy. Greetings again. How can Zerka Corporation serve you during your visit to Eden? Edian? Whatever. Who cares? Looking for something called a star map. No. Why would I do that? Tell me about the planet. You called it G5623 before. G5623, the numerical designation. The galactic basic name is Edian, chosen by corporate ballot among stockholders. It would seem you are already acquainted with this world, given your choice of traveling companion. I've been away for a very long time. You let the beast speak for you. You allowed more liberties than most of our customers. Allow it more liberties? What do you mean? It means that they're slavers. They take my people from their homes and sell them to the highest bidder. Our current Wookiee seems displeased with the situation, but I fail to see a concern. You seem to be a satisfied customer. Why do Wookiees tolerate you doing this? Not me personally. I merely represent Zerka Corporation at this outpost. There are other directors at other stations, of course. Arrangements have not been made with the Wookiee leadership. Have been made. Harvesting is handled as delicately as possible, relatively speaking. That looks like slavery or torture? Yeah, the Zerka Corporation is basically running a slaving ring here. Because it's Kashyyyk. And Wookiees are always being enslaved by someone or another. Aren't these the guys who later helped the Trade Federation? No. No, Zerka didn't specifically. I don't think so. They were still around, but they were much lesser power on the galactic stage by the time of the Trade Federation than that conflict. Tell me about it. I may be more understanding if I know. If it will ease your temper, I'll give specifics. We supply arms in exchange for a supply of healthy Wookiees. We are kept profitable, and an agreeable leader is kept in power. It keeps the process from becoming a constant firefight. Who's this leader's name? I believe his name is Chundar. I don't deal directly with them, thank goodness. Far too brutish. That was not a name I wanted to hear. Sounds as though your thrall has an opinion about our arrangement with this leader. Yet it doesn't matter. Chundar is unquestioned. What about it, Zalbar? What's the matter? That is not something I will talk about. Not yet. Please, is there anything else? I have work to do. I'm through speaking for now. Very good. Feel free to inspect our operation here, but I would advise against going too far from the main landing area. The planet is still very much untamed, and we do not send out our patrols for lost tourists. Okay. Well, yeah, no, Zerka Corporation is the epitome of corrupt corporate power. Corrupt corporate power that basically does what they will.
Don't take this the wrong way, but lately, I've noticed you're starting to look a little bit scruffy.
Scruffy? What are you talking about? I hope you aren't suggesting I take a bath.
No, I'm not suggesting a bath. I know how well that went over last time. But your hair's getting all tangled. And if you look close, you can see a few gray strands starting to poke through.
You're making this up. I groom every day. My hair's not tangled. It's not going gray. She's got a point, Zalbar. You could use a good makeover.
Don't worry, Big Z. It's nothing I can't fix. A little trim, a splash of coloring, and you'll be as good as new. Best looking Wookiee on the planet. Maybe a nice suit.
You do not trim a Wookiee. You do not color a Wookiee. And you certainly don't dress a Wookiee.
I know, Wookiees aren't into the whole clothing thing, but you could start a whole new trend. You'd be on the cutting edge.
Leave me alone.
Okay, sheesh. Try to offer some constructive criticism, and this is the thanks I get? Let's move on. You can just stay naked and scruffy for all I care.
Jesus. Wizkid says, I think the Wookiee is depressed from being on his planet again. Yeah, especially given his history.
Hold
why
here,
he was
Spacer.
why he left.
Zerka Corporation doesn't recommend traveling in Wild Adean. Katarn
Adean,
attacks are
okay.
especially bad right now. Wookiee hunters usually keep numbers down, but I think they leave certain areas infested, just hoping a Zerka guard will get killed.
I'm going past you. I paid the landing fee. I mean,
won't
it didn't,
stop you,
whatever.
but you leave this area at your own risk. We're here to protect the company, not you.
Okay, fine. Whatever. I don't care. I'm a Jedi. Who cares? Kinraths? What the hell are these doing here?
Take that!
Actually, you know what?
Die already!
Well, that wasn't so hard. They killed somebody, though. Alright. I think the Wookiee... Oh, sorry. Wizkid says, well, at least they don't have some bullshit corpo name for the Wookiees, too. Is it supposed to dance like that? Oh, the Kinriths, you mean? Yeah, kind of. They're dancy bugs. They're pretty cool. They're pretty cool creature design. I kind of like it. Can you sense it? The wind, the sound, the smells. I feel it all now that we are away from the spaceport. This walkway is new, probably built by the slavers, but I remember the trees. My village is not far from here. Is there anything I can help you with? It is kind of you to offer. My problems are very personal. I'm not sure if I'm ready to deal with them. I must warn you of one thing. I don't know if I will be a help or hindrance to you here. My father was very powerful, a chieftain. Perhaps his feelings have mellowed, but if my brother has had his ear this whole time, I may be very unwelcome. We'll deal with that when the time comes. That is what I am dreading. My shame was meant to be forgotten on some faraway world. I never thought I'd come back. I'm sorry. I've taken enough of your time. We should press on. Hello there.
This isn't good. I can't afford this. You think I can? Do you know what they get for a healthy one of those things?
What?
We'll work it out later. We've got company.
Oh boy,
What do
here we
you
go.
want, Spacer? I'm Patrol Captain Deno, and you're interrupting Zerka Corporation business.
I don't care. Wizkid says, I just want a Star Wars game with the combat of Jedi Academy, Force Unleashed, the story of KOTOR, and the presentation of, I don't know, Lego games. Really? The combat of Force Unleashed, I can't decide whether I like the combat better in Force Unleashed or in Fallen Order. I actually really liked Fallen Order combat, mostly because you're actually threatened. Whereas Force Unleashed, you're just a monstrosity of destruction. But the problem is combat like that, or even like Fallen Order, which does okay RPG type progression okay, but the combat of KOTOR is so tied up in its RPG style, like skill progression, that it would be hard to do that, the RPG style character progression, while still having more fluid, dynamic, action-y combat. I kind of like the like almost turn-based D&D style combat here. It's very much just it's literally based on 3.5, D&D 3.5. Everything about this game is a D&D system. I will say though, I've been talking and thinking quite a bit about starting a tabletop game of Edge of the Empire, the new Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars tabletop, the one that's its own system. It uses its own dice set and stuff like that. It's weirdly complex, but I actually really like it. I did a little experimental run through of a mission with Erica last night. It was really fun. It's really cool. I've got the Foundry set up and everything for at some point. Probably when we're done with either our Curse of Strahd game or when we're done with our Friday game, when that wraps up, one of those, I'll run it. It's basically the concept I had was basing it vaguely off of like Red Dead Redemption 2. Bunch of outlaws during the Rise of the Empire era, trying to stay ahead of the encroaching civilization out in the Outer Rim. Running jobs, stealing stuff, causing trouble, that kind of thing. Could be a lot of fun. Also elements of Firefly, of course, because they have a ship and that sort of thing. Oh, WizKid hasn't played Fallen Order yet. Enjoyed Jedi Academy a lot, though, and I like that it's short enough to run through in an afternoon. Yeah, true. Both I really like Jedi Academy. It was very good. Actually, I like Jedi Academy. I like Jedi Outcast better. The previous one, the one you played as Kyle Katarn. The combat isn't quite as smooth and as nice, the saber combat at least, but I actually liked it better story-wise, and I liked it better in terms of just the level design and things like that. It was really good. Yeah, we established that you are weak and cannot kill player characters, even if it's semi-scripted. Yeah, player characters are really hard to kill in this system, in the Edge of the Empire system. You can take injuries, severe injuries that have long-term effects, but the chances of you actually dying are pretty low. Pretty low. So Firefly, but for Star Wars, oh, you stole it right out of my mouth. Yeah, basically. Something like that. Something like that. Anyway, just hurry up and tell me what happened, Zerka bastards.
This Wookiee slave got a little rebellious. We had to put it down.
You put it down? We are not animals. Zalbar, let me handle this. But their disregard for the life of this Wookiee is too much. I've asked you to let me handle this. Honor my request. I will do so. For your sake, not theirs.
Careful now. That growl sounded pretty threatening. Keep your slave on its leash or we'll have another accident.
Just shut up, you trigger-happy idiot.
WizKids asks, actually, did you know there was a Firefly board game? Yeah, I've played it a couple of times. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I liked it. Do your superiors approve of you killing Wookiees?
Of course they don't. Why would you ask me that? Doing some sort of snap inspection? You're trying to get me to admit to incompetence, aren't you? Not going to happen. I stand by my patrol. This Wookiee got out of hand and had to be put down. We'll find another easy enough.
I won't allow you to enslave or kill another Wookiee.
Is that a joke? Who do you think you are?
Oh, you own it? Oh, cool. Awesome. Like I said, I've only played it a couple of times, but it was really fun. I need more people to play it because my mom isn't as strategic as I am. Yeah. That's the trouble with board games. Finding people to play with. Request a transfer. Move your patrol off-world.
I think I should pull in some favors and get us moved off-world, men.
Are you all right, Captain?
Are you questioning my orders? You don't want to do that.
If you say so, Captain.
Yes, I say so. Move out. This place just isn't worth the trouble.
Well, I didn't stab him, at least. You should be very happy about that. Ooh, got a bowcaster. Nice. Can I do this or no? It's a minor mine. I should be able to, right? Yeah, nice. Another. All right. Oop. A Mikal. That's cool. Oh, jeez. Zalbar, where are you going? Oh, God.
never get me.
No! Too many of them in a row. This is ridiculous. Whew, okay. That was more than I was planning for. Biscuit says, yeah, I got it for Christmas for 1 year. It's awesome. Even has an expansion pack. Even has expansion packs. Ooh, that's pretty cool. I think I've only played the base version. I honestly, I also just really like the verse. The setup of basically a, it's not quite a trinary star system, but the three suns that are close enough together to go between its sublight. Really neat. It's a great way of having a sci-fi setting like that. That doesn't... How do I put it? It doesn't... Let's go with... treat injury. It doesn't need any FTL travel. It still manages to keep everything relatively consistent, cohesive. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I just generally like it. I like the Firefly setting. It's low tech. It's relatively low tech sci-fi though, so that kind of limits what you can do. But it also, those limitations are also pretty useful for storytelling, I think. Stunned.
Here.
Come on, everybody. Beat him up. Beat him up! Thanks, mission. Jeez.
Here.
Okay. Biscuit says, yeah, I haven't played it in a while, but there's a bunch of different game modes you can fuck around with, including single player. I'm sure the expansion adds more. Very cool. Honestly, I like board games that you can do that there's a single player mode for, especially like elaborate, almost RPG style board games like that. Just because it's so... It can be really hard to find somebody else to play with, but then also you can still keep playing the game, and you can even like sort of practice at it solo. I like that. Biscuit says, yeah, I think the thing I like most about Firefly, aside from the libertarianism, that too, is the low-tech working class setting, like the original Alien. Yeah, that's true too. And funny thing about it is that Erica and I and a couple of others at one point, because we did a bunch of LARPs. In college. Ooh, Jesus. To the point where I had a lot of fun with even just coming up with ideas and such for a potential Firefly LARP that was Nerf-based. Like Nerf gun-based Firefly LARP. I'm going to turn this volume down even further. Hold on. This is getting ridiculous. There. Jeez, it's still pretty high. The problem is, the screams of combat are the same volume setting as dialogue. So I can't really turn them down without, like, losing out on dialogue. Let me turn it down a little more, I guess. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, geez, that takes 9 computer spikes. Acquire by primary functions. Access by exert ID cards. Can I just
No problem.
unlock it that way?
Didn't work.
No.
No problem. Didn't work.
No? Okay, well, I can't do that. I can slice it. Identification recognized. Access granted. Okay, cool. Now I can just access these freely. Alright, cool. Stuff. Combat suits. Alright. I don't think I really need too bad, but let's keep moving. Actually, there was... See, I don't know which way I'm supposed to go, so I don't know which way is the wrong way. In other words, which way I should actually go for exploring purposes. There was a Wookiee over there. That's probably right. We should go there first. You are not permitted to pass into the Shadowlands. Only Chundar may allow you entry. Especially when you bring filth such as this with you. This Madclaw has no place here. Who are you to question my place? You followed Chundar into the arms of outsiders. And yet you travel with outsiders yourself. Speak no more. Chundar will decide if you're permitted to enter the Shadowlands. What's this about? Where's this Wookiee I need to see? Speak to Chundar in the village of Rukwaru. He will decide if you are worthy. Okay, fair enough. Keep going then. Heal. A little bit more. We're gonna speed use away. Okay. Onward we go. Yeah, I also definitely like the libertarianism of Firefly, and especially it's surprising
Lord
given Joss
Malak
Whedon.
Was most displeased when he learned you had escaped Terrace alive. He has promised a great reward to whoever destroys you.
Of course. There we go. Darn, you saved. Nice, Zalvar. Ooh, some nice crystals. Ooh, and some lightsabers. Yeah, even though Joss Whedon is an absolute dweeb. Yeah, he is. He really is. Dark Jedi Knight Robe. Crystals, sabers. Nice stuff. Nice stuff. Yeah, I agree. Joss Whedon is kind of a dweeb. He's not actually... He is a good writer. I have to say he's a good writer. I can't deny that he's a good writer. I'm just really surprised that he wrote something so libertarian and so anti-authoritarian and so decentralist as Firefly. And a lot of it is, I think, later on, like you see him in interviews talking about Firefly later on. He's like, well, you know, it's not like the Independents were the obvious good guys. It's not like the Browncoats were actually unequivocally good. The Alliance really did make a solid point. And that's something that the characters and the viewer needs to reconcile and needs to wrestle with. And I'm just like, what? Are we watching the same show? Like, they're villains. They're just straightforward, obvious, unqualified villains. The Alliance. It's like, no, you're making stuff up, Joss. Come on. Just commit to it, dude. Just commit. Accept that decentralization is the correct way to go. This kid says, that's the funny thing about nerds. Cool ideas, even profound political commentary. Marred by an absolute misunderstanding of literally everything political. Yeah, absolutely. Stop where you are, outsider. You have entered the domain of Chundar, chieftain and leader. Stand aside. This human is with me, and I want access to the home of my people. Take me to Chundar. I would speak with him. The choice is made for you already. You make a demand for something you can't alter. Can't help. Enough talk. You and the outcast Madclaw will be taken to Chundar now. I'm gonna have to come up with all the different voices for all of the friggin' Wookiees, and I hate it. Wait. He can't join the party. I have to bring mission. Should I bring HK? Nah, screw it. I'm bringing Canderous. Sure, I'll bring Canderous. Why not? I'll bring Bastila when we go to the Shadowlands, because for finding the star map. That'll be next time. This will do for now. Wizkid says he does excellent character writing. Everything else, he's at least consistent. Unlike most modern story writers, he at least cares for consistency. It goes back, well, almost. It goes back to how these writers start with an idea and develop it really well, but don't actually understand any of it. This always happens. I will say, okay, I almost said he's really good at consistency, but not quite the case. Yeah, bring HK. I was going to bring Canderous, because Canderous is badass. He's really cool. It'll be hilarious if we bring HK, but it might be really cool if we bring Canderous, too. I don't know. Convince me while I talk about something here. We can also decide this and then pick this up next time, because we have 12 minutes. Anyway, though, what I was saying, Joss Whedon, a problem with his consistency thing. One of the biggest plot holes in Buffy the Vampire Slayer is that when she dies in the end of season 1, basically she stops breathing and needs to be resuscitated. Then that, because she died, it triggered another Slayer awakening. Kendra, I think. So it doubled the Slayers. Okay, cool plot twist. I dig it. When the Slayer dies, a new one rises. But then, guess what? Buffy came back. All right, cool. Problem is, she does it again. She dies, stays dead for a summer, and is brought back magically. Wasn't there another one? Why wasn't there another one? There should have been another Slayer. 3 then. But there wasn't. I guess maybe because Faith was still alive, but it's weird that because, well, Kendra died, but then Faith came up. So it's not like when one dies, as long as there's at least one, then another one doesn't come up. But that's not the case. That's obviously not how it works. So I don't know. It's a weird little contradiction that annoys me a little bit. And it was basically so they could have the gimmick of, oh, let's bring in one more Slayer, but they don't want to have 2 more Slayers because until the last season when they have like 40 Slayers, and then I don't know. It'd be funny to see HK interacting with a meatbag warrior culture and having him just belittle them the whole time. Yeah, but what about Canderous, who is from a meatbag warrior culture? I'm gonna bring Canderous. I'm sorry, you have not convinced me thoroughly. I'm bringing Canderous. I haven't brought Canderous to anything in a while too, so he's up. You know, I've never gotten around to watching Buffy. Still not sure if I should or not. It's really good. You should. Step forward and address the mighty and wise Chundar, outsider. I don't often allow visitors of your kind. You're flanked by Zerka slavers. Are they not outsiders? Or have you sold all of Kashyyyk to them? My brother's Albar. You've been exiled a long time. You shouldn't speak in that tone. Things are different now. You are a mad claw without honor. You have no voice among your own people. I, on the other hand, am chieftain. If you've made deals with slavers, the truth will get out eventually. You may talk, but no one will believe you. I've had a long time to guide what my people think. Hey, it's this again. They trust me, mighty Chundar. Even with my brother insane and father enslaved, I rose to protect my people despite it all. Father is enslaved. Mighty Chundar. What are you talking about? You are the runt. I am no runt, ahem. Like I said, Zalbar, a lot has changed in your years away. We will discuss this soon enough. Your game, I know I like Genocide Robot too, don't get me wrong. But I think I want to see how Canderous interacts with this, if he even interacts with it at all. I hope he does. What do you want? Why drag us here? I haven't killed Zalbar because he is my brother, and I hoped he and I could come to an agreement. You are irrelevant. I may be able to put you to use on a menial task. Zalbar will have to stay here, of course. What is this task? A simple thing. Another Wookiee has suffered the same fate as Zalbar. Gone mad and been exiled. He now lurks to the Shadowlands. More importantly, he is pestering my Zerka allies during their Shadowland expeditions. It is not good for business. The walking carpet is a chungus. I guess so. He's standing against you. The first of many, perhaps. No one will follow a Mad Claw. He is merely a nuisance. Besides, he cowers in the Shadowlands. My people know nothing of him. I'll consider what you've said. I'll go now. I'll allow you access to the Shadowlands. You'll track and kill this insane Wookiee, and maybe then you will earn my favor. Zalbar stays here to ensure your loyalty. The Zerka would never let me hold you, but they don't care what I do with fellow Wookiees. You're a fool. You're making the job harder. What made you think I wanted this to be easy for you? Besides, you won't need him. My people are trained to understand you. I tell them it's better to understand the enemy. They think it will make Zerka easier to fight. Actually, it makes them easier to obey. Remember, you can't beat me here. No one would dare oppose me to join with an outsider or an exile. You're wrong, brother. Someone would. Who are you talking about, Zalbar? You speak of Freyr, bro, father. Why? He was the one that ordered you exiled when you attacked me. He went as mad as you when he finally discovered the slavers. He dared challenge them alone, and has not been seen since. That was years ago. Let him go, Zalbar. I rule now. I'll take the Wookiees forward. But there are prices to pay. Play along, Zalbar. I'll see what I can do. No more words, outsider. I've given my orders. I can't hold you here, but Zalbar will stay until you kill the Mad Claw in the Shadowlands.
We'll get you out of here. You can count on us.
Guards will let you pass now. Leave the village to the northwest. Follow the platform to the south and then east. You'll eventually see where Gur Wookin awaits for you. He'll lower you to the forest floor. Go. Alright then. This will lead us to the thingy, the star map. This will also lead us to our next companion. And that will lead us to, I'm just going to say next week. Because it's just about close to midnight, and this is a fantastic place to stop. So, with that, I will first say, thank you for joining me. I will then say, save the game. Go with that. Let's see that one. Yeah. And then I will say thank you once more for joining me. And as I said, Thursday's stream is back up, so if you missed part of it, if you haven't caught up yet, check it out. It's there. That will lead us into Dragon Age Inquisition Thursday, where we're going to do some more side questing, but then we actually might start one of the DLCs. I'm thinking about starting the Descent, I was about to say Underdark, the Deep Roads one, Deep Roads Expedition one, or we might do a dragon hunting stream. I'm leaning towards the Descent first, though. So we might do that first. We might do that next week, this coming Thursday. Otherwise, we do have more side questing to do, of course, because we always have more side questing to do. It's Dragon Age Inquisition. Otherwise, that's going to be Thursday. Then we're going to be coming right back here to continue along on Kashyyyk next Monday. So, thank you all once again for joining me, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Good night.